Evening, or morning, wherever you might be joining us. We have Jonie on, who's making her SPTV debut. Do I have that correctly, Jonie, or did you kind of sneak in
Uh,
previous podcast
I,
before this?
s- I snuck in a little bit with Michelle and Marilyn before, but I wasn't talking about this stuff.
What did make you want to come forward and talk about this stuff?
Yeah, everybody else was. It seemed cool. No, it was.
You,
No, that's actually not entirely untrue because when I started watching the Leah Remini Aftermath show on A&E and hearing other people's stories, and I'm like, I wish there was somewhere I could add my story to the whatever you'd call it.
the plethora of
The collective. Yeah.
yes. Well, you're in the collective now. There's no turning back. And it's funny that you say that, Jonie, because I was just interviewing Marilyn Honig, who I believe is actually in
I
the
watched
chat.
that.
And
Wow. It was intense, Marilyn.
it was, and that was only part one. We're going to
Whew.
do part two next week if Maryland is so
Marilyn
bold to come back on.
is hardcore.
No shit. If you guys haven't heard her story, we did part one a couple days ago, and it's very powerful. And we didn't even get into the cult aspect. But the thing is, Jonie, Marilyn also said the same thing, that it was Leah Remini's show. They caused her to know she was even in a cult when she started to, see it around 2018 or 2019. And you kind of had a similar story, right? I mean,
I'd figured it out by then. I
Mhm.
just thought I'd never heard anybody really kind of telling their recovery stories or their trauma stories, and I just felt like I bet it feels good to do that. I wish I had a place I could do that. Is there a website where I can just type it up, even if nobody ever sees it, like to just get it out?
We're
So,
about to do that. How does it feel
yeah.
so far? Has the healing begun yet, or do we need to actually get it out there and tell the story? Because I feel like healing has happened. Are we done here, Jonie?
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll just go have a drink and
fantastic. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next week. Might as well throw them over here to say hi. Okay, enough fucking around. Do you want to?
the only thing I'm actually have any anxiety about is that it's not exciting stories.
I
It's just stories. Like you use the phrase "tell all" in the video title, and I'm like,
I
settle
can change
down.
that afterwards. Hey, I emailed you and said this is what Chat GPT came up with. So
You
let me
did.
know if you want me to
I
change
left it
it.
alone. No, it's just funny because I'm like,
We'll change it afterwards if
it's
you
a
don't like
tell
it.
all from the reception desk. Like
But it's
it's
an important story because you said we're not comparing. There is a thing in this
it's not a
community,
contest.
Joni. It's not a contest of comparing dick size to our trauma. So everybody's story is important. And also, you were in the '90s, so it's been 30 years, and it's
Mm-hmm.
still on your mind, as we talked about on the phone. But I think it's important where it doesn't matter how long ago it is, you can still be processing it 30 years later. Like, isn't it just in the last year that you really started actually thinking about it, even though you had it figured out beforehand, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, look, watching the Aftermath show and then listening to their podcast and all the people who appeared on that podcast, and I think that's when I first learned about Chris Shelton. I think was the first
Hmm.
YouTube guy I started watching, and then it just grew from there. And I thought, wow, it's people are talking about it, and it's okay to talk about it, and they don't seem embarrassed. They don't seem ashamed. So like that's possible. Cool. I want to not feel embarrassed too. So
Can I ask you why you? I mean, that is normal, Joni.
mhm.
It takes a while to. I mean, I felt the only reason I didn't feel embarrassed is because I happened to have a book dropped off on my doorstep that explained how the trick was done, and I could see that it was a trick. And without the knowledge of like how, because I got really embedded, Joni. I mean, my whole family was in it. I was in it for a couple decades. The only reason I didn't feel stupid and skip that part, which is really normal, is because I got that book that laid out how the trap worked. And I said, well, no wonder I didn't grow up learning any of the psychology or mind control stuff. So do you mind if I ask, um, why do you feel, or why did you and or do you feel ashamed, if that's the right word, about speaking out about it? Do you feel like you were taken advantage of, or are you talking about feeling dumb for being an,
I just
sign?
felt it feels it's embarrassing to feel conned.
Yeah.
And that when you step back and look at it, some aspects of it are so dumb
Yes.
that you're just like, oh, it's like you go to your 30-year high school reunion and you see the person that was like your first boyfriend that you were so crazy about, and then you see them 30 years later and you're like, oh no, why? What was I thinking? You know.
Yeah, you've had 30 years to ponder on it. That's what I mean, though. It's not unusual for 30 years later to start unpacking it and feel like new emotions or new realizations. Not least with Leah's show. I'm telling you, her show has caused so many more people to reflect upon their experience and actually feel compelled to come out.
Mm-hmm.
It's freaking awesome.
And I
So
do
it's
think
not. Mhm,
there's a couple of things about my story that I think are a little different
mhm.
that I haven't heard before. So I thought, well, at least I have that to contribute.
Like we said, it's not a competition. I already know your story, and it's definitely worth contributing. Do you want to
Well,
start from the beginning when this stupidity came
yeah.
into your life when you were a young lad?
I was a young lass, but sure.
Lass, sorry, man. Jesus.
So it was 1991. It was probably around this time of year, 1991, and I had graduated high school. I was 18 years old, and I was living with my dad, and he was really hassling me to get a job, but I didn't really have like a plan or goals or skills. So I was pretty adrift. Like I didn't really know what I was doing with my life. But I thought, well, if I have to get a job, I want to work in an office downtown because we're kind of like on the outskirts of Portland. I'm like, I want to
Hmm.
work in an office in downtown Portland because that sounds like glamorous and grown up. But I didn't really know how to do anything. So I thought, well, I could probably like answer phones. That seems like something I could pick up pretty quickly. So I started reading the help wanted ads in the paper for like, front desk jobs in that area. And this is kind of the first. You could really frame this story as a series of red flags to which I was naive at that age. And the first one was because I'd worked all through high school, mostly like service industry jobs, but it
Hmm.
was always like I got the job because a friend worked there, or it was like some sort of teen employment placement thing. Like I'd never done the experience of taking the Sunday paper and reading all the help wanted ads, which is how we used to do it in the old days, kids.
Yeah, and that's where Scientology would target people too, right? Where you're going to the ads. That's how my
Right,
dad got
yeah.
sucked in. Yep.
But, like, so I didn't know about there are red flags in those ads that I didn't know about, and one of them is if the ad says, "Help change the world," you don't wanna answer that ad because
Or
bec
don't show up to a volleyball game at 2 a.m. at night. You might run into Keith Raniere. Yeah.
so I know now if you answer the ad that says, "Help change the world," you're gonna either end up, like, door to door, canvassing for signatures,
Right.
or you're gonna end up in a fucking cult. So, but I didn't know that at the time, and I thought,
You're
"Ooh,
18,
I
man.
could change the world
Yeah.
by answering the phone." And I don't remember everything about the ad, but for sure it didn't say what the organization was.
Yeah. Of
For
course
sure
not.
it didn't.
Well, nobody would ever go. Make 3 cents a week. You're going to be under conditions that, yeah, they obviously have false advertising right out of the
Yeah.
gate. Which, by the way, Joni, that you bring that up, that should be illegal. They literally are false advertising to get people in there.
Well, it's all it said was like, help ch help change the world and then a number. So
Okay.
I called
So
it.
they're not saving the
And
world. So it's false
like
advertising.
and it yeah, and it indicated that it was, a reception job. So I called
Hmm.
it and I at that point they did tell me who it was because the funny thing is I kept a journal at the time and I wrote down in the journal, I have a job interview with the Christian Scientists.
You thought it was Christian
Like,
scientists.
I mixed it up in my brain. So
Okay.
they told me on the phone what it was, and I misunderstood it because I had that journal entry in my diary.
Did they
So I
say
thought
the
it was
word
like
Scientology, Joni, or did they?
they must have, but I heard it wrong.
A lot of people make the mistake of Scientology for Christian Science, by the way.
Yeah, because I didn't know anything about either.
Hmm.
So I just, like, transposed the words. So I showed up and I was like, "Oh, oops, it's not that."
Did you know anything about Scientology at this point? Have you
I'd never
seen
heard of
the
it.
volcano ads? No volcano ads on TV because this
I
would have been the time when and the exploding volcano. Not even that at 18.
I have no memory of it.
Okay,
Oh.
you wouldn't forget it.
Ugh. Um, s- so yeah, so I got the appointment and I went in. And I'll try to like describe. So it was on it was the Celebrity Center on Southwest Salmon downtown between Broadway and Park.
hmm
And if there's any Portland people, it was a perfect 90s Portland street. There was the John Helmer Haberdashery, and then the Church of Scientology, and then a Machismo Mouse, and then a Coffee People. So it was this perfect Portland. Oh yeah, that's right.
Is
These
this actually it?
the yeah
This
the
is the one that
only
you went to.
pictures
That's what it was like.
I scoured the internet trying to find pictures of the place at this time. The only ones I could find were from this. I think this was the anonymous protest in 2008, where
Mm-hmm.
I assume they got wind of the protest and organized a charity drive for the same
Oh,
day.
interesting.
Oh, put that interior one back up. Okay, so when I
There
when
it is.
I when I walked in, everything to the left there, that this whole
Mhm.
space was under renovation. So it was just a mess.
This right here.
Yeah, but if you look way over to the right, you see somebody coming down a staircase.
Yep, right here.
That staircase was the entrance up. So you go up and then turn on a landing and go up in the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole space was still unfinished at that time.
What is this? Do you have any idea what's going on here? Because there's a lot of people for
Well, it's a
Scientology.
charity drive. Did you see
Okay.
so I'm
That's why
I'm
people are in there.
sure they organized that the same day as the protest on purpose.
Interesting.
So it looked like the protesters were protesting a charity
No,
drive.
absolutely, they would do that, Joni. So this is when the anonymous was going on, when this charity drive thing. And do we have any anonymous members in this picture? No, but
No, but
that's
look,
exactly what they would do.
there's a couple thousand pictures. If you just Google, it was like a Flickr photo set that's still there. Hilarious pictures.
Should I try to find it while we're talking?
Well, I pulled the ones that were relevant for
Okay.
us, but it's fun to just go and look at. And I'm like, oh my God, that lady, and oh, that fucking guy.
What, you
But,
remember some of the people back in 2008 at the
oh
protest?
yeah.
Really?
Well, they were still there. Some of them are still there.
Wow.
Um,
Did you ever involve yourself in any of the protests, by the way? So you had been out. You're going to
Nah,
start us at 90, 91-ish, right? You
91.
never 91. And I guess we'll get up to the anonymous protest. We'll just start at the beginning, but I already have a million questions as to what, because that's when I came out, Joni, January 2008, literally the month these guys protested.
Yeah. Okay. So I went. Yeah. So I go in and I go up the stairs, and there's just a little desk at the top of the stairs, and that was where the front desk person sat. And I was like, I'm here for the job interview, and I interviewed with this sweet old man named Wendell, who I think was so that was a Div 6 job. It was
Can you explain what Div 6 is
Div
and any
6.
other terms we may use so we people's
Div
heads
6.
don't explode? Yeah.
Div 6. So there's six. I was trying to remember all of them the other day.
I know. Or Division 6.
Yeah, it's the public division. So it's like public facing people and dissemination of things publicly. I don't know. How would you describe it?
Would it be selling books too, Joni? Would the bookseller
Books?
be in Division 6?
I thought books were Division 2. Who's got a tech dictionary? No, that wouldn't be in the tech
I know
dictionary.
blow drill or no. Blow drill. Can you tell us what Division 6 is and what it includes if you
PR
remember?
and
I'll try to
relations.
actually pull it up, Joni, while we're talking. Please carry on.
I feel like bookstore was Division 2, which was like dissemination and something or other. Yeah. Anyway, so it was the old guy who was holding down the desk while they tried to find somebody. And I was just do you have a preferred word that's not the WOG word? Could we say like civilian?
Or you can just spell it out, WOG, maybe, because thanks for saying that, because I hate using that too, since I learned what it was.
I'll just say a civilian off the street.
Perfect.
I don't know how often that happened there. But okay, so I'm interviewing with Wendell and his little bolo tie, and he was very sweet and he was very earnest, and he was telling me, And I remember not understanding what I'm like, but what is this place? And he's telling me about how, uh, you know, have you heard of Dianetics and Scientology? And it's a modern science of mental health, and it's a
Mhm.
program to go up a bridge. And I'm like, but what is it?
There's an org board, by the way, but people can't see it. I'll link it in the
Oh, there's
description
7.
box. Yeah, 7.
7?
And it cycles back around. Basically, the org board, my friends, is let's say a product is going, every product of Scientology or even in your life, and we're taught this as Scientologists, has to go through these 7 divisions on the org board. There's a qualifications division where you fix the product.
That's 4.
That's 4. Okay,
I
good. It's
think.
coming back to you. 30 years later, it's coming back to you. This is all we really need to know about it, right, Michelle? Michelle says it's a cult. What else do we need to know? Nice. Print and stamp
7
that,
is
Michelle.
executive. Okay.
Nice. Okay.
I don't remember. Yeah. Anyway, but
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn it, but I didn't retain it. So,
Good.
yeah, so I'm talking to Wendell, and he's telling me about, he's trying to explain to me what this thing is. And I think when you're inside it at that point, it's hard to make an outsider understand, but he did his best, and he made it personal. Like, he told me about his personal wins and his family's personal wins, and just his little face, like he was so happy to tell me about this amazing thing. And it was like, aren't you so lucky that you came here, that you can join this amazing organization?
Wow. That's red flag number 1, right, Jonie? Because he was a
Oh,
little bit too happy and a
that'd be
little
number
bit too.
2.
Number 2. What was the first one?
Number 1 was, don't answer ads that say help change the world.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Red flag number 2. Yeah, somebody shouldn't be that emotional about a job.
Right. Right. I
That's
know
a
what
little
you're
odd.
talking about.
And at some point he did start to talk to me about the wages, and well, and he told me what the job would be, of course,
Mm-hmm.
the actual job, which is just the front desk job. And then he said, like, the pay though sometimes
Here it comes.
can not be, can be a little low. And I said, what do you mean, like a minimum wage? And he goes,
Maybe just a little bit less than that
it
some
can
weeks.
be, it can sometimes be a little less than that. It depends on how, productive the organization is overall, and what there were different, like, pay tiers. Um, but you get to do all the courses for free, and you can always sell books and whatnot for extra money. And I've been ever since I talked to you on the phone the other day, I've been trying to figure out what made me say, great,
Good
sounds
question.
great.
I was just going to ask you that. Was it the desire to help? Did the free courses mean a damn thing to you? You're 18. I would imagine the money would be the most important part, right?
I think when he said sometimes it can be a little less than a minimum wage, I still thought, I still would have never imagined it was as low as it was. So I think I still thought it would be a livable wage
Mm-hmm.
somehow,
Everybody thinks that, by the way.
because
Everybody
it's
falls for that.
unfathomable
Yeah.
that you would work 40 hours for like $8. Like,
Was it sometimes that low?
it was always between like $5 and $8.
A week?
Yeah, sometimes like 10, and then I could go get a fancy mocha and some french fries, and that was like a exciting Friday.
I can already hear the question being asked. So once you realize that on week 1 or week 2, or after about a month, what is making you
It
stay there?
it would have been a week or less, because it was weekly pay.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have an answer to that question, you guys. I don't know.
You guys that have been in Scientology, who have been on staff, and I know we have some people in here. What made you stay initially, if you have any in responses to that? But you're not unique in that, because people
It's
do stay.
it's not long enough to have gotten hooked in.
Yeah. There
I
must have been
can't I can't
something.
explain it.
Well, you told me over the phone that it was kind of the desire to frickin' help, right? I mean, as ecstatic as this guy was, were you not taken in a little bit by the let's save the planet, and
I
you're a
didn't
young
have
idealistic kid?
I didn't have any reason to disbelieve anything he was saying
Right.
because he wasn't coming at me with weird space shit. It was just like, we
It,
offer courses that empower people, help people become more ethical, help people do better at their jobs, help people communicate better. Like, it sounded great.
so there you go. That's why
And
you
I
were
can,
taken in.
yeah. And so, I mean, if he'd come at me with weird space shit, I would not have.
They never do, Joni. They
No, of
don't.
course
They
not.
hit you with that slowly. Were you in long enough, by the way, before we, tell the story? Were you in long enough to get hit with any of the space shit?
No, that wasn't until I did my own research after.
Wow. Okay.
Because I'd
Not
only,
even whispering around. They didn't throw you the history of
oh,
man book nowhere along the way.
I mean, I worked in the bookstore for a while. I didn't read them.
Not any of them. Did you ever take a crack at Dianetics or
I
were
did.
it? Okay.
I did,
Did
and
you
I
get
think
through it?
no. Well, fuck no.
Nobody does. It's horrible.
But at that point, I just thought it was like a nonprofit that people worked for because they believed in it,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And I should have turned around and run when I got that first pay envelope, which was, by the way, it was like some cash and some coins taped to the envelope is how they would
Really?
distribute. So you get like this envelope with like a quarter taped to it and then like a
Oh,
$5 bill in it.
that is
So
pathetic.
weird. So that red
Yeah.
flag number 3, that's not how you get paid in a normal
Right. Normally you get a check, not here's your little scrap money
in
in
an
an
envelope.
envelope. By the way, Blow Jill asked and wants to know if you remember Rusty by any chance. Does that name ring a bell?
Hmm. I don't remember a Rusty.
That would be a negative blow drill. But if it
Yeah.
jogs your memory, I'm sure we'll come back to it.
I can't remember who was the executive director when I started, but I know they weren't there for very long
Mhm.
because there was some kind of shakeup. Um,
Meaning what?
see, that's the thing is that working at the front desk, they just, I could have been anybody. They just wanted somebody at the front desk because that's the job nobody wants to. Because if you're Wendell or whatever, and that position below you isn't filled, you have to do it.
That's right.
It was HFA, held from above. When I had to study the org board, which is the big uh, infographic of all the divisions and all the people,
There it
the
is.
names of all the people and their positions. Yeah, so they have this big board hanging, and I had to study that as part of my hatting. Um, and most of the positions said HFA, which is held from above, which means the person above them on the board is doing that job, doing all those jobs underneath them,
Right.
because the place was just woefully understaffed all the time.
Yep.
But the point is, they just wanted a hot body, not hot, like hot. I mean, like warm,
And hot too,
a
because
warm
hey,
body.
in your defense,
Look,
they wouldn't want somebody ugly at the front desk because that's the first person that people see, and they often do put attractive people up at the front desk. That's
they
part of
would have
their
put anybody,
thinking.
honestly. But I was 18. I mean,
Okay,
everybody's cute by default at 18.
that's true.
Um, but it would have been, they were just desperate. But I was very
Yeah.
alone out there. I didn't really have anybody to talk to. I just sat there and answered the phone and just sort of observed from a distance what was going on around me. So when there was this like kerfuffle with the ED, I don't know what it was. I just know that something happened and he or she, I think it was a he, was gone. And then a new one showed up. And I don't know where she came from. Her name was Stefana Ottinger.
Wow,
If
you still remember her name.
anybody, well, because I had a huge girl crush on her. She was a
Right, right.
model. She was like this 6 foot tall, beautiful
No
woman.
way.
And I adored her. Like I was just like, oh, so
I want to ask
pretty.
you
Like,
about that. Now, you're not allowed to be gay in Scientology.
it
You
wasn't
cannot
that
have a
kind of
girl
girl
crush.
crush. It
Well,
was
even
the,
having a girl crush would be considered out 2D.
you
Did you
think
ever
so?
make that known? Yes. Yes,
Oh,
I know
hell no.
so.
Hell
Okay, so
no.
you didn't make it known. If you did, I bet you would have been an
I
F.
wouldn't have even articulated it. I just thought she was super cool and cute and
And nothing blossomed
fabulous
out of
and
that.
glamorous.
You never got the overt or withhold off and told her?
It never occurred to me until this moment that it was one.
Really?
No,
What
I
kind of
just thought
what did they do to your memory and your brain, my friends? Jesus Christ. You just remembering
Oh,
the girl crush.
so I gave men a misunderstood word. Executive
Oh.
director, ED executive director. They're the person who runs the little individual orgs. And there were two in Portland at the time, by the way. There was the Portland org, and then there was the Celebrity Center. They were different places,
Were you
several
at the
blocks apart.
Celebrity Center or Portland
Yeah,
org?
I was
Okay.
at the Celebrity Center.
So I didn't mistitle that part of the
Right.
clickbait title. I can keep the Portland org Celebrity Center part in when I
Yep.
rename it. Okay.
You don't have to rename it. I was just giving you a hard time.
I'm just telling you, I thought your story was fascinating. I don't try to clickbait the titles, but I will change it if you don't like it. You're
It's
already telling us all.
It's fine. But I've always wondered what happened. Where did Stefana Ottinger come from? Why was she placed there? Like, something happened. And she wasn't from around Portland. Like, she showed up to take care of business.
Meaning
So
like someone brought in from out of town, so to speak, to kick things into gear because you guys weren't booming or whatever.
Right. And she was kind of a hard ass about that. So let's see, Stefana, and then at some point she was gone, and a guy named Steve Crandall was the executive director, and I think he's still around, still doing his thing.
Can we make that red flag number 3 with just the name, Steve Crandall?
You don't like the name?
I'm just kidding. The Crandall sounds a little shady.
Those Crandall motherfuckers. I got into some. Look, here's the thing. At this job, I didn't know what offices were supposed to. I never worked in an office. I didn't know what they were supposed to be like. I didn't know if what I was seeing and hearing was normal or unusual. But I knew that then, as now, I am not built for office culture. So I was getting yelled at constantly for things that I would have probably gotten yelled at in any office, but also for a lot of things that were specific to that situation, like for joking and degrading, or creating dev tea for people by hanging around and talking. And that's when that's developed traffic. And that's just basically when you distract people from the work they're trying to do by putting things in front of them that then they have to deal with. Anyway, so where am I in the story?
What were some of your responsibilities when you first start sitting at that desk?
Yeah.
And also, have you taken any courses or anything to get, quote, hatted?
So I got I wish I could remember more about, there surely would have been some sort of like routing form, which is these long ass forms that you would have to do the steps of to accomplish a thing.
The simplest thing too, right, Joni? I mean, the simplest thing has routing forms, and everything is developed traffic in Scientology.
Yeah.
Doing anything takes forever.
So there would have been some sort of onboarding, routing form, and hatting process, which is just learning the specifics of the job, which itself was very simple. I would answer the phone and I would route calls. And this was back when, if anybody wanted to make a long distance call, they'd have to call the front desk and say, "Can I get an outside line?" And I would have to boop, boop, hit some buttons and send them an outside line. That was the extent of the job. I had a statistic. I had a stat, because everybody has a stat. And I think it was calls routed. So I would keep track of.
That's literally all you had to do was send the call to. Who would you send it to if they called in? Somebody that could give them the spiel on Dianetics, or depending on the person who was on the other end?
It was almost always people calling from up lines, the bigger organizations, or from the other org down the street.
It was never customers, right? It was always internal traffic from within and without Scientology.
Sometimes people would call to work on like scheduling their auditing or whatever, because we didn't have like email and stuff. So a public would have to call and say, "Oh, I can't make it to my session," shit like that. But no, it was, for the most part, it was just organizations calling organizations. And so I think about, like, man, I wish I like, I probably talked to a lot of people that I watch now on YouTube.
No names come to mind, obviously. That was too long ago.
No. But
yeah.
So I would have done whatever. I remember I was in a condition of non-existence
when you started, right?
Yeah.
Right when you started.
So yeah, there are all those different conditions that people are in at any given moment, and one of them is non-existent. So I had to go around and like meet everybody and
Right.
talk to, which was kind of cool, actually, not a terrible way to start a job, to be honest. But so I had to get out of a non-existence condition, and then I think I had to work up like through liability, which, like I didn't know any of this was weird, but it
That's
was.
not too weird, Joni. You just said it right there, and that's what hooks people. Is it's kind of sensible, right? Where on earth have you ever heard going to a job or you want to start your own job? And of course, you're in non-existence. You go meet people, you get the comm lines out, you find out who you're working with. I thought that was mind-blowing as a kid. So I don't think that's
Yeah.
a red flag or something that is too unusual. It looks weird when maybe we look back at it now and we can see it, but that's sensible enough, right?
Yeah, it is. No, what's weird is calling it a fucking church. That's what's weird.
I
But
know.
but that
It's
was
a destructive cult, and there is a difference, and we need to start calling it that, man. They only became a church, like here in the US, as you know, for example, by getting so much dirt on 1,100 plus IRS officials that they made their lives such a living hell that they said, we'll remove those if you simply give us our tax exempt status. They're not a church. They are a destructive organization and a cult. I hate it when
and
they call it a church.
that tax exempt fight was happening at the time. Like they hadn't gotten, the war was not over
Right,
yet.
right, right. This is
Well, this
right
was
when the
going on.
war is going to be over.
Yeah. Um, so okay, so I would have done
Right.
that. And I did at some point do the student hat.
I'm sorry to hear that. Do you want to tell people what that is and how long of a freaking chorus that is?
See, I don't remember it being, I mean, I don't remember it being
Maybe it
a
was different when you were
problem.
doing it. They
I
had a
just
new
remember
student hat. They've had at least a new one come out, but it's long. I mean, you had to listen to 8 lectures of L. Ron Hubbard
I had
gibberish.
to,
Do you remember those? Yeah.
yeah, I had to listen to lectures. I had to do, I had learned how to word clear, doing
Sensible enough too, right?
demos, which I loved. I loved the clay demos. I like the little paperclip demo. I love that stuff. Because I'm a visual
I
a
remember.
visual artist, so I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the feel it feels like playing."
Yeah.
Um, that's all I remember of that, and I know I started the comm course, and I think it maybe, like, started TR0,
You didn't
but I
finish
never
it
got
though.
to I never got to any of the fun TR drills.
I'll tell you, none of them are really that fun. Unless you're a kid and you're doing the bull baiting and pushing people's buttons, it can be fun for a while until it gets not fun.
"You like to pee your pants," or, like, yeah. No, I never got to
Yeah.
do those. But, in the course room, though, you observe all kinds of stuff, and I remember thinking, "There's some odd stuff going on in this course room,"
Like what?
which, like seeing people do TR drills,
Did it freak you out
hearing
initially?
hearing like, yelling through the walls. Yeah, but also, here's how I would rationalize it, because it's still in my I'm still mentally trying to, make myself believe that there's something church-like or spiritual happening. Oh, like, these are spiritual practices, they're just a little strange, and I would say, if you go to, like, a Catholic mass, and if you've never seen that before, that looks really strange too. So it's no stranger than anything happening in any other church, and this is how I would rationalize it to myself.
Yeah.
Um, but before well, I was trying to think of, like, what is the timeline? Like, when was I hooked?
Joni, can I
And
ask you something? Did you ever
yeah.
take on board that this was a science? Did they ever sell it to you? This isn't a religion. And the weirdness, maybe, did you ever get pulled aside and said, did you ever buy into the idea that this was a
Yeah, yeah, in
technical
fact,
way and not a religion? This is a scientific way to get your shit together, for lack of a better phrase.
well, my understanding of it, and I think what appealed to me the most about it, is that it was a scientific approach to spirituality,
Yeah.
which that appealed to me because spirituality is so, like, nebulous, and
Yeah.
you you
It's the
you
ultimate
hear
sell, right? It isn't
yeah,
so nebulous.
and let's say let's say you experience a trauma, and you're talking to somebody about it, and they'll say, like, "Well, you should pray about it," right? I would know right away, like, that's not gonna help me, like, I need tangible steps. So,
Exactly. That's
like,
what
some
hooked me.
And so yeah, and somebody might say like, "Well, you know what, Doug, you just need to like get over it's time to get over that thing." And you're like, "Great. How? What is
Exactly. And
step
they'll
1, 2, 3? I'll do it."
one exactly. It's like a computer program. That's what I loved about it.
Yeah, me too. So it was like, "Oh, well, here is actually a scientific method you can use to process um, uh, s- spiritual was process mental trauma through like a spiritual lens. I don't know, but the
Yeah.
fact that it was like hard practical steps. I really really like that. I still
Me
do.
too. Me too.
I found I was in a DBT therapy group for several months that I loved because it was the same thing. It was like they would send us home with a packet of homework, and I'm like, this I can do.
What's DBT, Joni?
I'm gonna say the D word wrong because I always do. Dialect dialectic
Di-
behavioral therapy. No, look, you guys probably know. Does somebody know?
You
Save me.
just gave everybody MUs, the
Save
MU
me.
phenomenon. Just
It's a
kidding.
type of therapy. It's just it's practical. It's basically like brain tricks you can do on your brain to stop yourself from spiraling.
Is it similar to Scientology in any way?
Not at all.
Okay.
It's similar in that they both offer tangible steps. Dialectical. Thank you. The nurse who loved me.
Here's another thing you might be able to
Thank
relate
you.
to from Dusty. You know, he says when he studied psychology, I uncovered what narcissism is, and I quickly realized upon research that a narcissistic relationship is a cult of one. What say you? Have you looked into that subject, Joni, particularly since leaving Scientology? Did that give you any, and if so, did that give you any insights on what you were involved with of Scientology, or maybe even an abusive relationship if you've ever been in one?
Um, Not really, not that specifically. I've dated people who were diagnosed as borderline narcissistic. I'm familiar with the type, and I had one partner who was a sociopath, borderline sociopath narcissist, but he was still a fine person.
Really? I guess you had a nice sociopath. For me, Dusty,
he
that kind of
wasn't
cracked the whole thing open.
he
Yes.
wasn't he wasn't the stabby murdery kind. He was more like
Well,
the
they're not
Sherlock
necessarily
Holmes
that. That's
kind.
the movie version. They're usually
Yeah.
love bomby. They're very nice, and they rope
Nah.
you in through
He was just
sugar.
a he was just a guy who didn't understand why other people got so emotional about stuff.
Right, right. Because you didn't
Yeah,
have
he wasn't
emotion.
full sociopath. He was tested. He had too much empathy
Well, then he
for,
couldn't have been a
like, animals and stuff.
sociopath.
He was borderline.
Okay, borderline makes sense.
Anyway, um, where was
Yeah.
I in my story? Okay, so,
Sorry about that.
I did
You're at the front desk.
I'm at the front desk.
You're
Do
thinking it's kind of a science. You're, you know,
Yeah, and I'm just absorbing it's a huge culture shock, so I'm just spending a lot of time absorbing what the fuck is going on and just getting to know people, and everybody there, I gotta say, was super nice,
yeah,
friendly,
yeah,
heartfelt, like, big-hearted people,
yes.
for the most part, but, like, nothing about the individuals raised any red flags.
Did the over happiness freak you out a little bit? Because I know exactly that was my experience going down as a kid. That was the first thing I noticed where and also did that over happiness make you want to be like them because you lacked the enthusiasm that you were seeing around you?
I don't that didn't last for very long. I very quickly saw that that's not, the reality. I think once the sort of public, valence,
Yes. Facade.
yeah, and when you actually see people in morning muster and, you realize, "Oh, okay, these people are just as, emotional as everybody else. They just endeavor to, conceal it." But, no, people were blowing up at each other all the time and, you know
Was that right out of the gate? Did they try to hide that from you? And then also, what was your reaction when you saw that contrasted with the smiley place that you were initially hit with?
these are the hard questions because it was so long ago, that I don't have any specific memories to draw on.
But you were at muster, right?
Yeah, I was always at muster. I mean, I don't think look, it didn't take very long for me to get yelled at about stuff.
What would you do that would get you yelled at? Do you have any memories?
I was just a dumb kid. Like I was, I don't know. I just didn't have much of a work ethic either. So I don't know. I think I mostly just would like walk around and chat with people and annoy them. Um,
Because you didn't have much to do, right? All you had to do was sit there and
it was
basically wait for the
so
phone to ring.
boring and listen to the fucking music tapes over and over and
Would they
over.
play the Hubbard shit the whole time, man? Was it music from
Yeah,
The Road to Freedom or something?
it was the album that had the Way to Happiness song on it,
I can't
which
believe you didn't leave after week 2. That
which
drove me nuts.
tormented me for 30 years, and then, my friend Japan of Green Gables, who we all know, found that song on YouTube, and I was like, "Ah, I didn't imagine it, it's real."
Yeah, it's
It's a
horrible too.
horrible song. Um, but sometimes there would be, like a VCR playing stuff, but it was super boring, and I'm not sure how long it was, but at some point I did change jobs to the bookstore. Um, I probably said, "Look, I gotta do something else, and I need an opportunity to make more money because you can always make money selling books. It's
Mhm.
either selling books or body routing, which there's no way I'm ever gonna do that. Um,
But with selling books, you have to go out and sell it to people, or were you just doing it in the bookstore? How did that work out?
yeah, just in the bookstore. So by this point, the renovations they were doing on the street level were done. So the bookstore, which was a little room kinda off to the side of the reception desk, moved down into that big open space that we saw in that photo. Um, so I got to be part of, helping yeah. So this whole I'm pointing at it like you can see what I'm pointing at. The whole open space became like bookstore display, so it was really
Yeah.
fun actually to create all of that. Um and I worked under a woman named Joanne. She was the bookstore officer, the BSO. I don't remember what my position was, but something under the BSO. And she was it. She was the whole bookstore. And
Yeah. They have one
there,
person often, right, Joni, to do like
y-
15 different departments of that one
yeah.
or multiple
Well,
departments.
and it helps that most of those jobs are just silly nonsense anyway. A lot of those jobs that are
Yeah.
HFA held from above are just, you know,
Bullshit.
like
Busy
yeah,
work.
like dishwasher IC or whatever.
Yes. In charge,
In
by the way.
charge.
Yes.
Yeah, in charge. Um, so I was maybe I don't think I doubt I was deputy. I don't know, but I was something in the bookstore. But, that's when I discovered, this is one of those little, like so many of my memories at that time are pretty fuzzy, but some are crystal clear. And one of my crystal clear memories was getting a shipment of Dianetics paperback books and opening up the boxes, and they all had price tags on them from another bookstore.
And why would that be?
Well, my understanding was that if you buy huge amounts of Dianetics books from bookstores, that it will stay on a bestseller list,
Can you believe they did that?
which somebody like strongly implied. They might not have said it like outright, but so I had to sit there and pick the price tags off of all these books so that we could sell them as though they're new.
Did they tell you, Joni, or did you figure it out, or was that was that red flag
Somebody
number 4?
somebody said something that made it that from which I inferred that that it was like a typical practice to buy huge amounts of Dianetics books from bookstores. I don't know. That's a faded memory, but
It's true though.
that's what I
That's
came away
that's
thinking, and that's what I've always remembered
yeah,
is
that's how
that
they kept it on the bestseller.
um yeah, so and I would pick them off and we'd resell them. Um and then the only other real memory I have from the bookstore is so there was a commission on books, a small commission. But if you sold something like a set of tech volumes, there were two big volumes,
Red and green, right?
red and green, and the red ones were tech and the green ones were
The green ones are policy letters. How to
yeah,
run the
the
org versus the tech of
HCOPLs,
auditing
yeah,
and
the Hubbard
stuff.
Communications Office policy
Yes.
letters, yeah. So there were these huge sets of like sets of encyclopedias, um, and certain people would be required or pressured. Oh God, and some of the pressure I saw them. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So while I was in the bookstore, I observed the pressure tactics they would put on people to buy books and also to buy auditing intensives, which were like the packages of however many hours of auditing
Mhm.
time, and the
12 and a half
pressure.
hours is one intensive, and they sell them, by the way, folks, in packages. So the more intensives or 12 and a half hours of auditing that you buy, the cheaper the price is, but they're much more expensive than normal psychotherapy.
And they were really big on selling as much future stuff as possible
Yep.
too. So like, oh, I bought everything I needed to go all the way up to OT8. It's going to take decades or whatever, but you buy all of that stuff at once, um, because Thursday at 2 o'clock is coming. Thursday
Yeah.
at 2 o'clock is when you got to turn in your stats, and if your stats are down, that's bad. And there's this, oh my God, I can't remember who was in charge of the stat. A woman named Diane. So there are these graphs hanging in the hallway, like hand-drawn graphs on graph
Yes.
paper. And she would go out there every week with a pencil and a ruler and draw the lines on every single graph to show if you were up or down. And down was always bad.
How often were
Um,
you down, by the way? Were you
I
down
don't
quite a bit? Because it's hard to actually be
I
up.
don't remember. I mean, look, I don't remember how did I actually track my call routing stat? I don't know. And I'm sure I made shit up. Um, why wouldn't I? Who cares? It's a dumb
Do you
stat.
remember being in ethics a lot? Doing the
Um,
conditions and trouble. Do you remember, being taken off your post and having to do other stuff because you always screwing off?
no, no, because what? Who? Nobody wants to hold the desk.
That's
No.
true. They would have another conundrum.
um,
You didn't read Big League Sales by any chance, did you? Japan asked. You know what the hell
no,
that is from Les Danes? Okay, I don't think
no.
so, Japan, because she wouldn't have been a registrar. She's just routing calls. But
Yeah.
that's what the registrar, the person who tries to squeeze as much money as they can out of you, has to read. And it's written by this dude, Les Danes. He's like a complete, well, I don't know if he's a scumbag, but the sales tactics are scummy in the way of mortgage your house, this, that, never take no for an answer. It's one of the most brutal sales techniques that Scientology also incorporates.
And yeah, so I did observe people doing things like pressuring people to max out their credit cards or saying, "Look, let's call the credit card company. We'll call
Right,
together and we'll see if we
right.
can get them to extend you more credit so you can afford these tech vols." Because it's the most important thing you could ever do with your money. And any excuse you'd come up with, like, well, you know, I have bills, or my kid wants to go to the summer camp, like any excuse you come up with, owning those tech vols were more important. But the actual motivation is just somebody's trying to make a fucking stat and a
Exactly.
little bit of commission because they're desperate and they're starving.
And they want to
And
eat. Yeah.
that's the story I was gonna tell about the bookstore, is that whoever like takes the credit card info and passes it on to whoever processes the who does the cashier thing, um, whoever takes the credit card and writes it down and passes it along gets the commission, right? So I was in Joanne, the bookstore officer's office one day, and her phone rang, and I answered it, and somebody said, "Hey, I'm here to or I'm calling to give you my credit card number because I need to pay for the tech balls." And I was like, "Hell yeah!" So I took their info down because
Finally, right? You
that
got
was
a
like
sale.
yeah, that was like a few $100s or something. Like, it was a big commission. Um, so I took it down and I was like, "Whoa!" And Joanne was like, No, I did that sale. That was I spent
That's
weeks.
right.
I
People
spent
fight
weeks
over
with
this
them."
too. Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, I got the number. What's the policy?
No, she was the
She who gets
FSM,
the
the field staff
number."
member.
And
Oh
we
man, you're
were
bringing back so many memories of shit.
so somebody came in, like we were screaming, sobbing, hysterically fighting about whose commission it was. And
This
he
is what it's like too, Joni. Scientology is like those people calling from India and Sri Lanka, allegedly wanting to help with their computer issues they see you're having, and then they scan to rob you all their money. That's freaking funny.
I watch a lot of scam baiting on
So
YouTube,
do
so
I. And
yeah.
they do remind me of those people calling from India. Can we take your credit card? Yes, no, sir. I mean, like anything to get that goddamn number. It's very similar to that.
These tech files will help with each and everything.
And the OT levels, you don't, what they say about the OT levels is there's a policy that says, forget your kids' college tuition and everything. These are the most important things this planet has to
Yeah.
offer. Mortgage your house, sell your son, sell your kids over. Yeah. And they just want to eat, like you said. I didn't realize that. It's like I got out of the cult. They're so motivated because if their stats are down, they're literally going to starve that week. They're not going to make, their $10 to get a pack of cigarettes. And by the way, did people smoke there a lot? Because Scientologists often smoke, especially on staff.
Oh yeah, there was a staff lounge area where like there's a fridge and a microwave and stuff where you could smoke. It was across the hallway from the sauna where people were doing pure. So
that's a little bit of a contradiction. Were you smoking?
Ridiculous.
Were you smoking at 18?
Oh yeah.
Wow, you
Heck
were
yeah.
a rebel. Because the Scientology was being indoctrinated into you, or you were already?
I was already smoking by then.
Okay, you fit right in there.
I started smoking at like 15.
Wow.
And I'm not doing it right now because I'm inside.
I got that covered for both of us.
Otherwise, I would.
Sorry, I hope I'm not driving you nuts.
No, it's fine. We've been trying to reach you about your Thetans extended warranty.
Who said that? You guys make some very snarky, funny comments. Chow is the best.
So we ended up splitting that commission, by the way. I think that was how the
funny Chow. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't tried that. Oh my god.
So we split that commission. I did also spend time sometimes when I didn't have anything else to do. I would go down into the letter registrar office. So that was down in the basement. Down in the basement was the letter registrar office and folder storage, and also like bookstore storage, where I once made out with a really cute boy in the bookstore storage.
Nice. That's also where they hide the bodies, but I'm sure they kept those from you. I'm joking, guys. I could probably get sued for saying that. I feel like Scientology's looking for like any little thing to try to get us.
I wonder if I ever reported that on an OW write-up with making out with that kid in the bookstore. Anyway,
if you would have, I'm telling you, Joni, these are like no-go things.
I want to see my PC folder and my ethics folder so bad. I wish to do anything to get a hold of them.
No. How come you wanted to see it? I mean, you didn't have much in there, right? What would have been in there?
I'm just curious about what
they wrote, just
to fill in the blanks of my memory, because I do remember my first knowledge report, but I'm sure there were others. But okay, so let me get through this story about the letter registrar office. Yeah, so the woman who worked down there, her name was Maggie, and she actually passed away recently because I followed her on Facebook. She worked there with her husband. His name was Doug, and she passed away. But she was very weird and funny, and she would have a stat of like letters mailed out, and sometimes she would need help meeting her stat. And I liked doing that because you could chain smoke in that room. So it's this small windowless basement room filled with paper because we're writing letters. And we would just chain smoke like crazy and handwrite these 1-sentence letters. Dear Doug, I see you are on staff. How are you doing? Love, Jonie. And then, this was before like stamps were self-sealing, so you have to like lick everything. And then, so we'd just bang out hundreds of these letters that must have just reeked of cigarettes.
Out PR.
That she'd have to get out by like 2:00.
Can you explain, or do you remember the theory about why the sentences were so trite and what that was supposed to do by simply writing, "Hi, Doug, I see you took a Dianetics course back in 1920. Would you like to come in?" Do you remember the theory about why?
I always felt like it was just more about how many could you do quickly.
Yeah, it is quantity over quality.
outflow is
Equals
proportionate to
inflow.
inflow. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, so they ended up just being garbage letters, just
Yep.
dead trees for no reason.
There was
And
a reason though, Joni, kind of, if I remember, it was to get in, not to hit people with technical terms, but to try to find the ARC buttons. So if somebody had taken a course, for example, you would re-stimulate their idea, or maybe you'd say, I see here, because they keep files on everything. I see here you had the win on Dianetics, page 45. Remember when such and such happened? It's kind of designed to create a mystery sandwich by keeping it short and simple. Find something that you have in common with that person or something that will trigger them to come to the org. That's the theory. And this is the way L. Ron Hubbard was thinking, like in stimulus response ways. But the letters themselves never communicate to real people. They're the funniest things. And you guys know, ex Scientologists know how funny they are. And nothing communicates to the outside world. But Hubbard thought that this was like some magical way to basically pull people into the org.
yeah, I still got, I've gotten a couple of them since I moved to this house. And I remember one of them said,
Really?
like, "Hey, you were on staff. Did you ever get your upset handled? Love, Jeff."
Have you gotten any of that recently? Like, when was the
It
last
was within
time
the last 5 years.
asking you about staff
Yeah,
too? Was it? Oh my
yeah.
gosh! See
So
what I mean, guys?
somebody, I'm like, "Wow, you are really scraping the bottom of the barrel
Hmm.
of your folders
Well,
if you
they
got to
do,
me in 1991."
right? And they do. And there's even a policy, Joni. I don't know if you remember it, but unless you're dead, and even if you're dead, you never get taken off their mailing list. They always track when you move because they have ways of doing that. And I mean, it's like an abusive
I don't know
narcissistic
how they found.
relationship. You go, but they never let you go.
Hold on, somebody said my mic is hot. You wait an hour to tell me my mic is hot?
What does that
Flunk.
even hot? What does that even mean?
Flunk.
I
Let me
can hear.
turn it down.
Okay. That means
Um,
too loud. Guys, how is the sound? Because it sounds
is
perfect for
this
us.
okay? Is this any better?
One,
I
if it's better. Two, if she needs
I
to correct her mic.
I can
You
also
guys were
keep
having
it
trouble.
further away from me. Yeah. Sorry about that 8 points of out R factor.
Thanks for letting us know, though.
I hope that's better.
So it's okay, guys. I mean, two, if it's bothering you, because we can fix it. You can see the studio setup she has. I mean,
Yeah. I just
it's a,
can't hear myself through Restream, so I don't know what's going on.
mhm,
It's perfect.
me
All right.
neither.
I'll
Okay.
stay
Thanks, guys.
very still. Let me check my bullet points to see where I'm at here.
Sure. I can pull them up too if you get
Nah, I
lost.
got it.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot to mention I did sign a 2.5-year contract.
Right. I was actually going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Did they try to hit you with the 5-year contract at first? Do you
Oh
remember?
yeah. Big pressure. And I'm
How
like,
did
nah.
you downsell them to 2.5?
Oh, I don't know. I just know that I did.
Okay. They're persistent about that.
Oh yeah, because that's a stat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everything's a stat.
So let's see. The job was super boring. First paycheck around $5. Yep. We talked
Not
about
bad.
stuff on it. The course. Oh, the student hat. Yeah, the grubby little course room down the hall. Boring ass lectures. Oh, I did have some auditing.
Really?
Oh, let's rewind a little bit and talk
Sure.
about something you and I talked about on the phone.
Sure.
Because we had a nice long talk earlier this week,
Yes.
which is the first time I've ever talked in any real way to another ex-Scientologist.
Thank you so much,
It was
Joni, because
very intense.
you were great, and I really wanted to talk to you when I saw you on Michelle's channel, and you mentioned you were a Scientologist, and I'm like, you're really well spoken, and I'm like, how the hell have I never heard of this lady? And I was gonna reach out to you. I never reach out to people because I don't know why. I'm just getting lazy. But you reached out to me like a couple days later, and it's like, yes,
Yeah.
this is Nerdy Girl Films. I really wanted to talk to you. Thanks for reaching out, man.
I also have, I have my ex-husband is still tangentially involved. So,
Really?
it could be problematic.
Is
Talking about,
he watching right now, and is it a problem if he is?
I seriously doubt he would be, but he still works for an organization that's associated with, and his girlfriend is a former OSA person. So
Really?
it's the worst.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
the
letting me
worst.
know that now, Joni. Now we
Worst.
know the channel's going down. I've been fighting to keep this thing up. God
Former
damn it.
OSA.
Okay. There's no such thing as former OSA. That's like saying former
Shit.
CIA.
So, but like, yeah. So, and we have a kid together. So I don't know.
Is there a demon in the background that I'm hearing? What is that sound? Or Halloween? I just hear once in a while.
Oh, the robot vacuum. I'm so used to
Of
it. I didn't even
course. Why
notice.
didn't I figure that out? You have a
Sorry.
robot. It's not distracting at all, actually. You have a robot vacuum.
Yeah, it
You're
runs
even
every day
lazier
at
than I am,
5 o'clock.
Joni. Can't even vacuum the damn floor.
Well, look, I have
What?
a bad shoulder. The doctor says I
I'm
shouldn't
just playing.
vacuum.
Okay. So you literally have a
Seriously.
robot that does your vacuuming?
Yeah. Is that my boyfriend is a gadget nut, so it's not my robot, it's his robot.
That's funny. I don't suppose you can bring him in towards the end of the conversation, could you? I'd actually like to see that.
The robot?
Or dogs, cats, whatever you got.
I'm not going to invite any of them in here.
Okay.
It's chaos. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. You and I were talking about this early on in this venture. Maybe one of the things that might have really helped me stay, even after getting that first paycheck, was experiencing the e-meter pinch test.
Oh, right.
Which blew my mind.
Me too.
So what this is, you guys, is that you hold the cans and someone, and I'm assuming everybody knows that.
Not necessarily. Please explain it because it's fascinating.
Well, I don't really know how to explain the e-meter. It's a device that has little dials, whoop, whoop, and it measures ostensibly emotional reaction, but it's doing other sciencey things I won't even try to explain. But
I'm going to pull that up while you're talking. There's one with Marty, by the way, Joni, that explains this perfectly. I can find it. Please
okay.
Speak.
But it works. But you hold these cans that are about the size and shape of like soup cans that have like alligator clips on them that feed into the machine, and you hold them. You got to take all your rings off and get your hands kind of oily, and it.
Joni, I got it. How about I found the video. How about I play this because it explains it perfectly.
Okay,
And
the
then
pinch
we
test.
can riff on how incredible.
Awesome.
This is a great magic trick that Hubbard came up with. If nothing, this is a really clever tool because I experienced the same thing Joni's going to describe to us. It's kind of magic if you don't know what's happening. But here's, I think, Marty showing the pinch test when he's out of the coal, and it's pretty impressive.
Fucking Marty.
Minutes.
I know.
So this is the essential tool of the trade, if you like, for Scientologists.
Right. It is the central religious artifact, is what they call it.
Central religious artifact. And by the way, Joni, he's out of the cult right now, but a lot of the people like Marty from Int Base who left, including Mike Rinder and such, for many years, they still believed in the tech, what they call indie Scientologists. So even though Marty's out here, you can still see his belief in the tech and the intensity and the smirk on his face as he's about to show this incredible magic trick that we both experienced as kids.
Extra minutes. So this is the essential tool of the trade, if you like, for Scientologists.
Right. It is the central religious artifact, is what they call it.
E-meter.
Yeah.
The e-meter is a vital piece of equipment that is essential. It's an essential tool for members of the Church of Scientology, and it ultimately is akin to the confession. You hold these cans and through it runs a current, and apparently it's reading my emotional response to questions.
Essentially what we're doing is we're creating a circuit with your body, and it's calibrated in such a way that it will register on thought.
Right.
Okay? I'm going to pinch you, okay? Mm-hmm. You just keep an eye on that needle and watch what it does. See, you're doing it before I even do it, so you're anticipating it. Yeah, see, you're getting a read there, but
really?
Here we go.
Okay.
Give you a little pinch. Okay, you see that little jerk? Now what I want you to do is to recall the moment of the pinch. Did you see the needle?
Oh, sorry, I was looking away. I couldn't look at it and recall at the same time.
Okay,
what they're trying to show here, just in case we lose context, is and I had this happen to me too, and I was convinced that reads on thought because of this. Marty pinches her, you see the needle fall to the right, and then when you recall the moment of the pitch, I'll be goddamned, and I want to ask you if this happened to you too, Joni. It falls the exact same distance when you rethink of it.
What I want you to do is to recall the moment of the pinch. You weren't. Did you see the needle?
Oh, sorry, I was looking away. I couldn't look at it and recall at the same time.
Okay, so I want to see if you
Okay,
can see if you can try to do it at the same time.
Okay.
See, you're going to get
Okay.
a slighter small read. You just got it. There you go.
Okay.
And that, in a nutshell, tells you what the whole Dianetic Scientology process is.
And you believe this. This is the part of Scientology that you are a believer of.
Well, I've seen that there's some validity to it. You know, it was actually called a security check, and so the intent of it was for the security of the organization, so there was nobody who had wrong motives or could not be trusted.
Yeah, it was used as a lie detector with the CIA and uses them when they use in police interrogations. It's 2/3 of a lie detector, so it's not reading on thought, and it does make sense that it would do. You would be pinched, and then you recall the moment of the thought. And Hubbard took the interrogation tool that's not valid in a court of law, but nonetheless can show stress and perhaps an area to look into. And Hubbard created a whole magic trick and philosophy around what these individual reads look like. It's quite a clever scam because when you get pinched and you recall the moment, it really does actually fall. But that doesn't mean that it's reading thought and all the other bullshit that Hubbard added onto it.
Intent of it was for the security
Those were
of the
fancier cams than the
organization.
ones I
So there was
remember.
nobody who
Oh, really?
had wrong motives
Some
or
alligator
could
clips.
not be trusted, and so it became something that was done standardly pretty early on in the lineup. Before you could trust somebody, they would have to be security checked. I mean, I don't want to, and I know you wouldn't sit for it, but I don't want to go into anything personal. But on the same basis that where I got you to recall that thing, I can direct your attention towards: is there anything you don't want David Miscavige to know? And then I follow up on that thought, and you can see that I can sort of, from this, chase that thing down.
That's how they pull the withholds, guys. That's when I was a kid and I wanted to get out of that room. They won't let you leave because of the previous training routines that you learn on the communication course are designed to prevent you from literally grabbing the person and making him sit down. You're told this meter knows all and sees all. And once you see the pinch test and it seems to be reading on thought, you can see why you might feel that you can't hide anything from the auditor. And this tool is just a very clever way to interrogate people under the guise of releasing trauma.
You know what it is, Doug? It's
It's as simple as that.
Please.
I was talking about the appeal of something that applies science towards spiritual concepts.
Right.
This was exactly a perfect example of that.
Exactly.
And I was, and when I saw when they did the pinch test to me, I was like, oh my God, that's
what I
so
said.
rad. This shit works.
That's what I said.
So
It was really impressive.
I did see, like, I wonder if that hadn't happened, that situation with the pinch test, would I be here today? I
That's
don't
a
know.
great
Probably not.
fucking question.
Probably not.
I never asked myself that, but that's a great question.
Because there's no other way they could ever possibly demonstrate the validity or efficacy of anything they're saying.
That's right. Maybe the meter is the best thing that they have, even though it's not what they say it is. Yeah, that kind of demonstrates the efficacy. Did
It's
you
a
have
genius trick.
what was your experience when you did the pinch test? What did it convince you of? Or what were you
That
thinking?
it could I never felt like it was reading my thoughts, but that it was interpreting a physiological reaction to an emotion I was feeling.
And that's enough maybe to follow a line of thought and believe somewhat in the e-meter, right?
Right, because then you think, wow, this would be such a great tool when you're trying to process something traumatic that you're having trouble confronting,
Yes.
because you can't
Yes.
hide.
Yes.
You can obfuscate, verbally, but you can't hide what the meter is showing.
Such a great point. I'm so glad you brought up this e-meter. Let's finish this off real quick, and then there's a couple of questions regarding the meter, and then we'll just pick it up from there. But this is a great point you brought up.
That where I got you to recall that thing, I can direct your attention towards: is there anything you don't want David Miscavige to know? And then I follow up on that thought, and you can see that I can sort of, from this, chase that thing down.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
My results were okay.
Such a creep.
On the day, I didn't seem to be suffering anything that was terribly, nothing that was impeding me in a way that needed treatment. Look, I didn't find it terribly convincing.
It didn't remove her critical thinking skills, but for some people that works like magic. My TV, Hubbard didn't invent the e-meter. It was another Scientologist who introduced it. To my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments afterwards, it was Volney Matheson that originally was a Scientologist. He since exposed the scam, and he's the one that created it. And before that, as we showed in one of the other videos called Maitreya to Magician, where we deep dive into the symbolism of Scientology and where he got a lot of the concepts, Carl Jung was using it. And it was kind of part of the philosophy even before Volney Matheson. There's a whole story about how they had an argument and falling out. Matheson wouldn't give him the rights. So he went back to Dianetics for a while. And then it's a long story about how he actually hornswoggled Volney Matheson and able to use that meter because Jonie, even he recognized the power of deception and magic trick that would have on people, you know?
Yeah.
And Marty, I'm sorry, I just had these things starred real quick, and if I don't bring it up now, it's going to be out of context. But just one
Marilyn said something I really wanted to answer.
Sure. Philosophy will come right back to this. So let me pull up Marilyn.
Don't the TRs kind of teach you to be able to hide emotions and thoughts? Would that allow you to trick the e-meter? Here's how I would answer that.
Good question.
Tell me if you agree with this, Doug,
Sure.
or maybe I'm off base. Because you definitely had more. You were way more into it for longer. But the TR drills, as my interpretation of them is, it's not. You're not hiding your emotions. You're like disassociating from them, kind of.
Exactly.
So they're still there. You're just learning to just like not respond. With to just be still and quiet through it. So, but Mark Headley does talk about he would get a floating needle, which is the phenomenon indicating that everything's awesome.
It's exactly what I would do, Jonie and Marilyn. Yes, I would try. This is the power of that e-meter. Once you believe in the pinch test, is that I would try to dodge it like Mark Headley and think of Depeche Mode and think of positive thoughts. And that does work and influence it. But sooner or later, it seems like they can always bring you back around. I'll give you an example. I did the purification rundown 3 times. The second time I did it, I was stoned the entire time. So obviously, when I go to a test, Jonie, I would get high in my car and then I would go into the sauna. And people were none the wiser. And then at the end of every course, you have to attest. So you have to get on the e-meter. I was shaking and I was scared, but I did exactly what Mark did. I thought happy thoughts and they said, "Thank you very much. Your needle's floating." And I was like, holy shit. Now you'd think that would be a red flag where I would know that the meter wasn't working per the way that they tell me, but I still believed in that meter. I just felt like I was able to bullshit it that one time. I'm so glad you brought this up because I don't know if people realize that how powerful that is of a trick, because that fucking pinch test does work, but it doesn't prove all the other stuff that you can follow thoughts and you have past lives. It's a great way to implant false memories and, like Jonie said, dissociate you under the guise of going free. And it is hard to hide things. Yes, you can think different thoughts to dodge, but the training routines that somebody was talking about earlier, they're designed to get you to hone in emotionless to get the fucking question answered. So you're going up against an auditor who has those training routines in, which is pretty emotionless, who's also been disassociated, trying to get you, who also believes in the meter, to dissociate as well. It's both. It both shuts down your emotions. So maybe when you go into an auditing session, you can't access them. And at the same time, since it's guided imagination under a light trance state, it kind of simultaneously opens up your imagination and emotions, because I would come out of sessions high as a kite, not emotionless, quite the opposite. It's basically just what you said, Jonie, dissociation, which gives you all that phenomena.
And I think I'm a little jealous. I never got, like, I only had a little bit of auditing, and I remember specifically what I went over in an auditing session, and I didn't really get anything out of it that was remarkable. I'm a little jealous that you did. But
Did
I
you
always
have enough
figured,
though, or were you just doing
well,
auditing for ethics conditions? Like, do you remember what kind of auditing you actually did? Because some of it can be brutal if you were just subjected to security checks or something, or some
no, it
version of
wasn't
it.
anything like that. It was like, it was, I don't remember enough. I was just, it was a trauma. I was working through a trauma. So it was
Okay.
like a public would get
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. um, and I think I thought that, well, maybe I just didn't do it right.
Well, did you not necessarily? So, because sometimes it can take a while. Like Joni, I
Yeah.
didn't have a big win my first auditing session. It took many dissociation
Well,
sessions. So, did you have enough where you got any
I
high, any
no.
win? None? Did they?
I
They
mean,
have to end off at a good place.
other than like what you would get just if you'd feel good talking about something.
Yeah, yeah,
But I believed that the winds were out there.
yeah. You
Like
believe there's
somebody
something at.
at some point I saw
Yeah.
Japan asked if did I become a true believer or was it just a job? And
Oh, that's the
um
Bureau.
it was I went all in for sure. I went all in for that like first year. I was all the way in, and it wasn't. We were talking about this on the phone the other day. The weird. It's the weirdest thing. It's almost impossible to describe being in this place where you feel like you should belong. Urgently, you feel that, but also you feel that something is really not right.
Yes, I had that the
Always, it
whole
felt
time.
like something was not right,
Exactly. Exactly.
but you couldn't name it.
No, so you'd pull it back on you. Exactly.
Yeah. So I always felt both all in, but also a little like kind of one foot out because I had some experiences early on. I got to tell the story about getting trapped at a reg event. because because I need help remembering the guy's name. So it was my 19th birthday, so it would have been December 1991. So I hadn't even been there for very long, right? Um it was my birthday and I'd met this guy at CC named Thomas who was like 40 years old and he was German and also a heroin addict. So I was hanging out with him when I was 18, which is a
Wow. Very
pattern
rebellious of you, young lady.
perhaps you will
You
see
like the
repeating.
you like the rebels.
And significantly older. So, but he and I had plans. We had reservations at a restaurant for my birthday, but there was also this big event that was being promoted. You got to come to this event. This really cool actor from LA's coming up to talk to everybody.
Oh, you guys did get a celebrity to come down there because I was going to ask you if there was any celebrities at Celebrity Center Portland, but you said no on the phone. But someone was flown in, some C-level actor.
He came up from like LA.
Okay.
I never saw a celebrity
Even though
ever.
they call it right.
People who came there were like artists and performers, basically.
Mhm.
It could have been called like Artist Center to be more accurate. But this
Right.
guy, and I wish, he was like a big time, not in the world, but in the church. Like a guy with a mustache and like curly hair, and he was an actor, and he came up to do this event, and it was a big deal. And I desperately wish I could remember his name. And I feel like I heard somebody say it recently, and I went, "That was the guy," and then I forgot it again. But it's
Damn it.
this fucking guy. It was so. I was excited. I didn't know.
If
Don't
you
go
were
to these events because it's a reg event, and I didn't know what that meant.
Exactly.
That means they're going to
Exactly.
trap you in a room and try to get money out of you.
And literally trap you, Joni, just to let
Yes.
people know, like, I knew this happened a million times, but they somehow get you to go, even when you know it's going to be a reg event. And the way it works is they say, who's going to make they say some danger that the orgs are in, the psychs are after us. There's a reason why we freaking need money now, even though we just did an event last week and the week before to get money out of you. So what they do is they use group pressure. So I was always broke in the cult because I was giving it to them. And then I would always end up giving something because they'd have one person raise their hand. So-and-so donated 100. Another person goes 1,000. So finally, I'm always the last one sitting there, or there's 2 or 3 of us that haven't donated. The pressure is so intense, the group pressure, that I would always give them at least, the last $5 I had that I was going to use to eat that night. they had you. Do you remember that, Joni, feeling that feeling of them, the group pressure and the intensity of those fucking fundraising events?
Well, yeah, because when I went to this one, so I told my friend, I'm like, okay, we've got this dinner reservation at like 8 or whatever. This event's at 6. We'll pop in. I'm making up the times. It
Pop
was
in,
approximate.
yeah.
We'll pop
No, you're
in
not.
and just see like what this cool thing is about. And then we'll go to dinner. So we go into this little room and they just like shut the doors and like stand in front of the doors.
Yes.
And this actor guy with the mustache starts giving this whole, entertaining presentation.
It's not Milton Casales by any chance, because he did have a mustache and he was an acting teacher. That name's not ringing a bell,
No,
right? Okay. You guys got any
no.
more? Throw them out there and we see if
I
we
know.
can trigger
I
Betty's
heard it.
memory.
I heard it recently, and I went, that was that guy. And then
He
I
was an
lost it.
actor, a B level, A level, C level.
I probably see.
Okay. And is he still in Scientology as far as you know, Joni?
I have no idea.
Jason Lee.
No.
Okay.
No, I would have remembered that.
Okay, so lesser known than that. Okay,
He
we'll
was
figure it out.
like he looked like a smarmy like soap opera actor, maybe. Like he was.
Okay. We
Ugh,
might
but
figure
he
it
did.
out.
But he came up recently. I think Amy Scobie was talking about him. He came up because he was like, oh, he was like that rock star Reg guy, that actor that everybody would get to pitch to present at Reg events.
God, I can't believe I can't think of it. By the way, I have to say something real quick, Joni, because the audience is going crazy and getting thirsty. And we just played this game where anytime someone says the name Xenu, and now Marlene, everybody takes a hit of their favorite poison. That would be this for me, but I'm going to stay sober and I'll just hit the cigarette. But those in the audience, please feel free to indulge every time you see the word Xenu. I just wanted to throw that out real quick. Oh, you absolute rebel. Go slow.
Right. Look, we got to speed it along if you want to hear the time I dropped LSD.
We got that on the bullet points too. But I mean, whatever. I mean, just keep going. This is fucking fascinating.
So we're at this Reg event, and it's clear that the doors are like. I'm like, oh, this isn't what it seems.
This is your first Reg event, Joni, ever?
Yeah, but I'm watching this guy. He's giving an entertaining presentation. I remember him specifically making a joke about, like he was just chewing up the scenery, and he made this joke about MasterCard.
What?
I don't know why I remember that part of it.
Wow, how could you forget?
But he was doing all this like space and body work. MasterCard.
He's literally trying to do some voodoo hypnotism to get the MasterCard out.
Because because it's the master of you. And anyway.
Oh wow.
But look, somebody got up to leave. And when they left, he just stood there and like humiliated and shamed them angrily. Scary, angry. Like not pretending angry, but like that fucking guy that just left, like
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, it's like 7:30. This seems like it's not anywhere near ending. We got this dinner reservation. We're trapped in this room. And if we try to leave, this guy's going to shame us. It was fucking bizarre. And finally, my friend just stood up while this guy was mid-sentence and was like, we have dinner reservations and it's her birthday. So we like skulked out while everybody was scowling at us. Well, that guy was scowling at us. Everybody else was looking at us with like envy.
They wish they had the balls to do what you guys just did.
So that didn't sit well. That was uncomfortable. And that would have been just a couple of months after I started. And I started a list of things that nagged at me that did stack up after a while. That was a big one.
It wasn't Jim Meskimen. It wasn't Jim Meskimen. Was it Jim Meskimen, by the way?
No.
Okay. And not Eddie DeZine.
Does the name Pomerantz mean anything?
Yes, Jeff Pomerantz.
Did he have a mustache? Or a brother?
Guys, help us out. I'm thinking he's an actor, Jeff Pomerantz. You guys that are old school exes know that, right?
I don't think that's right, but it's close.
Okay. There is a Jeff Pomerantz. Sorry to get you off track. Please continue.
Okay, so here's the list of things that nagged at me. getting trapped at a reg event, that sucked. Hated
Yep.
that. Clearing the planet is a dumb goal that makes no sense,
You
and it
realize
doesn't
that now.
it
Yeah.
doesn't take you. Well, I realized it then.
You did?
Yeah, because I remember talking to somebody about it. Somebody who's out now, by the way. But
Mhm.
yeah, I said, I'm like, look, the math doesn't even add up. Like, there are too many people who are have taken way too many psych drugs.
Yeah.
Too many people who aren't qualified to ever go like it did. It just seemed like a ridiculous goal, and I didn't understand why people were devoting their lives to it. Like, find a, scale it down a little bit, make it realistic.
How did you
But
push that out of your head, or what did they tell you? If
they
you
told
ever
me that
questioned?
if you just have to get enough people to clear, and then it'll like,
The theta, the free spirit. Remember we talked about this on the
yeah,
phone? That's exactly what they told me, because I had the same question. First of all, it's super expensive, so you're only going to hit the rich people. They make the able more able, which is a way of saying we don't want anybody that doesn't have money. And then also the way I understood it is if we just got 10% to hit clear or whatever, it was never explained, Joni, but all the people on psych drugs, as you know, if you're on psych drugs, you're completely disqualified from Scientology. But somehow, if enough people, particularly got on OT7, where they really boom their theta, that would be enough to what, somehow give everybody money, remove the psych drugs from their body, and they'd qualify to be Scientologists. I don't know, but this is used in a lot of destructive cults where they
you're
say we
already in
only need
trouble
10%.
for
Yeah,
asking too many questions.
yeah, that's exactly how they handle it.
And then, but then also, here's the thing: that if you ask a question like that, here's what you're always told. It's just because nobody can give you what is called verbal tech.
Yeah,
Like, nobody can say in their own words an answer to a question. They'll just tell you to go look shit up. You just got to go look it up.
exactly, which is very clever.
Read the source.
Yeah,
And then also, I'm going to write a KR because you're annoying me
exactly. And you're
with your
daring to
questions.
question the tech. Yeah. That's the way the course rooms are run too, Joni, as you know. It's quite clever because it always goes back to source or Hubbard. So if you do have a question, which of course is going to come up because of the cognitive dissonance and doubts that are being created, and they just say, find your misunderstood word. What do the source materials say? The material's never wrong. So therefore,
Yeah.
you get locked into this find the misunderstood word
And
thing, and then it puts you back on the material, and then all the questions go away.
if they didn't, they'd get in trouble for verbal tech.
Exactly.
You could write a KR on them for giving you verbal tech.
That's right.
So
Such a clever self-reinforcing feedback loop trap, because it squashes all doubts, doesn't it? Did you want to take up this one, Joni, from philosophy? How's it explained that the planet hasn't been cleared yet? It's a good question.
Because you're not producing hard enough,
Right,
I guess.
exactly.
You're not. What are you doing to boom your local org?
And
sir
also
or ma'am?
philosophy, when I was at my org, which was Celebrity Center, it was booming, and especially here out in Los Angeles. And then maybe you'll be at an org. I don't know if yours was booming or not, Joni. I'll ask
Oh
you.
God,
No,
no.
it wasn't. Okay, so an
Oh,
org
no.
like hers, you don't go all over the world and see what other orgs are doing. So it can be very easily justified that you're just not producing enough at Portland, Oregon. Look at what LA's doing. You're in a bubble world. You're going to events where Miscavige for 3 hours is hypnotizing you and babbling and showing you all these statistics that are lies, which make it look like you are clearing the planet. So one of the biggest shocks I had coming out, Joni, was finding out that we didn't have millions of members. They told me like 14 or 15 million. I believed it. I never looked at anything negative. And I come to find out we have 30,000 fucking members, including the staff and everything. That was mind blowing. It's because of the mind control philosophy where we don't feel like we're not clearing the planet. And another example is the Masterson thing. Let's take Danny Masterson, for example. People go, isn't that enough to disabuse Scientologists and make them all leave? No. What they say is the more negativity that comes into a scene, i.e. Masterson has been wrongly convicted from their viewpoint, that shows that they're expanding. That's proof. Because the more order that goes into society, the more theta you spread, you're going to get confusion blowing off. So you can expect the enemies to come and attack Scientology. You can expect people like Danny to be wrongfully convicted and all sorts of things to happen. Therefore, give more money to the IAS because we're expanding and everything is reversed. So you do actually feel like you're clearing the planet because it's all a hypnotic spell that whether you're going to events, you're at the org, you're getting mail. This is why they constantly keep you hitting you up, even if you leave, because as soon as you break that bubble and look for outside source of information, you can break the spell. But until then, if my example is anything to go by, we were clearing the planet. And David Miscavige was more than happy to show us 3 times, 4 times a year how much
Yeah.
we were expanding at those events.
Look at these pictures of some volunteer ministers handing booklets to
Exactly.
people.
At Katrina,
Good job,
9/11.
everybody. That was your donations.
Yeah. And they're just photo ops
Whoopee.
to keep
Yeah.
the people in the bubble world thinking that they're expanding. Yeah, that's even nothing too. But I mean, 13 to 14 million compared to the Catholic Church. But when you're in Scientology that only has 30,000, I was like, damn, dude, we're getting close. You know, smoke and mirrors. Exactly. It's all just an illusion.
It's a good segue to another one of the things that always really bugged me about this organization and others is if you actually have the answers to like save the world and you're not giving that away, if you're charging money for that, that's disgusting.
That's what so many people have said.
That's monstrous.
You know how that was explained, Joni? I don't know if you remember this or you were told that, but I obviously had the same question. And so do outsiders and everybody in Scientology. There's a policy that I remember where he says that, look, we'd like to give it for free, but it costs money. The organizations, in order to expand, the buildings cost money. So we have to get money, but we're selling the most valuable thing on the planet. So if we want to expand, because we live in this crazy world that's built around money, obviously we need your donations. Otherwise, we can't get Scientology to people. That made complete sense to me.
Sure, I guess.
They have an answer for everything. It should be free, but the way he explains it is like any organization. I mean, the Catholic Church can't operate for free. None of these places can. How would they have organizations? So that's how they'd dead agent that question. How do members find out someone has been declared? Is it a cult-wide email or word of mouth? Back in the day, you used to get the declare in the mail. When I left in 2008, they would post it on the bulletin board. My organization,
Goldenrod.
No, it was just like when David Mayo, for example, was declared. There's a bulletin board at AOLA here in Los Angeles where the people that are declared, they just said this is what the person did and everybody could access it. Nowadays they keep it more hush hush. They're not going to do any broad declare. But if somebody like Masterson, for example, was declared, I don't think he has been. It's just a rumor at this point, no matter how much media is being pumped out by Jeffrey Augustine. It would be known internally, and they might grab people and take them aside and whisper to them if the whales or certain important people are questioning. But people would find out in the bubble world through word of mouth if somebody had been declared. But it would be more hush hush, and they don't mail them out anymore because we have so many channels and people speaking out. They don't want to put out any more than they have to, but they will find a way to notify their internal members. Hope that answers the question. Anyways, where were we, Joni? We were on the e-meter. We talked about so many interesting things.
I was talking about stuff that never sat right with me. And
Clearing
another
the
one is that
planet.
clearing the planet is dumb.
Yes.
Why do
agreed.
you charge so much money? And this is clearly not a church. Like the amount of mental gymnastics I had to put myself through to let that be okay is exhausting. But it's just clearly not a church. Like there was a little room that was like a chapel that nobody ever went in.
Right.
Everyone, for the most part, was really super uptight about, like, they had absolutely no sense of humor.
That's true.
About Scientology at all. And I got snapped at and yelled at a lot for any sort of joking and degrading. Something about, I realize now that I think I was just like triggering their insecurities or whatever, but I was very taken aback many times by people just screaming at me about, like, wow, lighten up, guy. And yes, Angry, yeah, and angry emotional reactions for some reason were fine,
Mm-hmm.
but any other sort of totally appropriate emotional reaction was invalidated. I got told I was dramatizing all the time because I was having totally normal and appropriate, maybe not always appropriate, maybe sometimes disproportionate emotional reactions to things. Um, and I never, it felt like, what kind of robots are you trying to make here?
You felt that when that was happening, and you
Yeah,
noticed that?
I know. Yeah. And just the whole idea that emotional reactions are bad, or yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know, or down tone, like the more strongly you felt emotionally, like the more you go down the tone scale, which is
I
the
was just going
scale
to
of
ask you, did you actually learn that thing? Because that's one of the most
yeah,
manipulative tools ever. Was that
yeah,
embedded in your brain?
not embedded. I mean, I was familiar
But you
with it.
knew it, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because that's
um
what you're describing is exactly what the tone scale is designed to do, to
but yet
suppress real emotions.
it was totally fine to scream at people because
Yeah.
that was like tone 40,
Yeah, exactly.
which is the highest tone. It's
Intention.
yeah,
It's like being in the
it's
military. It's
yeah,
like
and it's
everybody's a
not.
drill sergeant.
Yeah, and I didn't see that as just I saw it as just being yelled at angrily.
Yeah.
So just the whole, I don't know.
And also,
Um,
tired people and hungry people get cranky too. Everybody's stressing out everybody else, basically. And anger's probably the most
and
encouraged emotion in Scientology.
people did always seem to be pretending.
You thought so? You didn't think
Yeah.
that they really believed in it? Because I thought there
No,
was a bit of pretend.
absolutely they believed in it. I feel like everybody was pretending that it was working great for them.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and I think that goes back to something we were talking about earlier, where the happy facade. And I pretty kind of quickly learned that it wasn't, that they were just regular people having regular feelings, but that they did seem to try really hard to pretend that they were having all the wins. Everybody was having wins all the time, and it's great that we're spending this much money on this thing. And it just felt very, very phony and very performative. And because I don't know, because it seemed like you just had to be minimally observant to see that people's lives actually weren't that great.
Yeah. But it can be hard to be minimally observant if you get indoctrinated for a period of time. So thank God you were only in for about a year.
It's about a year.
Can I ask you this, Joni?
Mhm.
So we've gotten a good gist of your experience and what you did. What caused you to kind of leave? Was it the lack of money? Was it the series of things that you're noticing that are stacking up? Was there one moment, or what led to your exit?
It was honestly, if it paid well, I probably would have just stayed forever.
Oh,
But
shit.
I was living. I met a guy who named, oh, I shouldn't say his name. I met a guy who, that I moved in with him, and he was 30, and I was 19. Continuing that pattern. Um, and I moved in with him. Well, to be fair, I just sort of like went over to his place and never left. But he was not a great person, and he was very involved in the church. Still is. Um,
Wow.
and he um he was super abusive, actually. And I was just young and daft,
You were 18, man. What are you
and
supposed
he
to know at that age?
19 by then.
19. Same difference.
But yeah, I lived with him for like a year. But he was always getting on me about being out exchange,
Yeah.
which is like when, how would you explain out exchange, Doug?
That was it's still embedded in my brain today. Everything in my family had to have an equal for, there was no such thing as really helping your kids or anything. Everything had to be done under the fact of, if we help you with this, Doug, including maybe loaning you some money for courses, you have to exchange with us and do what you want. We want you to do. which is fine. I mean, it's normal, right? Again, it sounds rational, but they take that to the extreme and they use it to hold things over you. And that's part of removing emotions and making it more of a sociopathic and robotic environment. Every single thing has to have an exchange. And they also have different levels of exchange where one of them, for example, is called criminal exchange, where you take something, but you don't give anything back, which is exactly what Hubbard was doing. So they have all these different conditions of exchange where you're microscopically managed to make sure that you didn't get anything for free. And if you gave something, you always need to get something back. And by the way, there's a lot of ex-Scientologists, not a lot, but let's just say some that rub me the wrong way because they never get rid of that particular part. So I always feel like I'm being used. And in real friendships, which I learned getting out of the cult, people don't think like that. Normal people actually, it still blows my mind today when anybody even helps or throws a coffee or whatever, or supports in any way. I can barely have it because there's this weird feeling of if I actually get help without giving anything back. Do you feel that too?
You'll be out exchange.
Yeah. It's a horrible way of thinking, actually, when it gets inside your brain. But that,
Yeah,
is that
everything is not a negotiation.
I know,
Like,
but it isn't Scientology and within Scientology families.
and so when I was living with this guy, and he felt I was just kind of leeching off of him because I didn't have anything to contribute financially because I worked at Celebrity Center, so I didn't really, I
What did
made
you have? $5 to give them?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm getting a lot of shit from him about being out exchange, and he got a job at a place that he said he could get me a job there, but it was full time. I mean, I'd have to leave CC, and they didn't want me to leave, obviously. And I remember him getting into a little bit of a very heated argument with the executive director, on my behalf for them to let me route off, because I did want to route off staff properly and stay and remain in good standing, which is what happened. I'm still in good standing, though
Wow.
perhaps not
Not
for long
anymore.
now.
Not if they come across this interview, but good for you. You don't need to do yeah.
So he had to really argue about that. He's like, "Look, she's at my house. She's got to get a fucking job. She's,
She needs
anyway."
money.
Yeah. So he actually really did the fighting for me.
So in a way, even though he's still a Scientologist, he's responsible kind of for getting you out. Because I was going to ask you, once you break that contract, you signed it for 2.5 years. I know what they put me through when I signed it and I left a few weeks later. Did they make it a living hell? You didn't have to go through a sec check,
Nope.
and they kind of
I
let
have
you
no
go?
memory of a sec check. That seems like something I would remember.
Yeah, I think you would.
Maybe it was like, we'll get to it eventually, and we never did. But if I did, it was unremarkable.
And
I
it's
know
not
that I
every
got
org, Joni. It depends
it was
on how hardcore you could have gotten out of there. But I'm sure they didn't want you to leave, right?
I got a freeloader's debt. Yeah, no, they definitely didn't want me to leave.
No, because they got to find somebody. It's so hard to get somebody like you, Joni, to fill any post there that whoever was responsible for you leaving, they're like, shit, man. I have this huge challenge now of trying to get somebody to fill the post. You're always worried as a staff member about filling the fucking post, because it's hard to get people to
Yeah.
join Scientology and sign that contract.
Oh, yeah, even if trying to recruit a public to be on staff. And the only people who did it, honestly, had spouses who worked some other job that paid well.
Interesting.
Single people on staff is unsustainable unless you still live with your parents or whatever.
Yeah.
So I routed off staff and I got a job at a company that used Scientology tech. So I slid right into their Div 4 qual stuff. But then I just remained a public after that, very casually for many, many years.
Were you trying to keep your mouth shut? Were you trying to toe the line? Did you feel a little bit of
I didn't
pressure
wanna
not
rock
to
the
say
boat,
too
no.
much?
Yeah, and when I finally got away from the bad boyfriend, I gotta tell that story. Oh, I got away from that guy, and I started dating another guy who I married, and I was married to for like 10 years, and he worked for one of the consulting firms that does the he still does. And his brother was really into it. I had several employers in a row who were involved. I had friends. I still have friends
Not anymore.
who are still involved. So I was very casually around it. Like the minister at our wedding was a Scientology minister. We'd go to events. I don't think I ever spent another dime on it.
Did you
But
ever have
it
any
was a
pressure by
social.
these friends to come back? Or did
Not
they let
really.
you kind of float
Not
away?
really. Yeah. I mean, there are things about Portland that they really weren't that hardcore. Maybe that's why we got in trouble a lot as
Right.
orgs. They should have been beating my door down, but no, nobody ever did that. We're too chill up here.
I was just going to say that. Any other place, I think that you might experience that, but it does depend on the environment. Oregon's too chill, and they're all.
We are. It's possible to be a casual Scientologist here, I think.
Yeah,
But
I believe you. Not anywhere else.
and then during those years, I just mentally pulled away from it. And it was just like no different than like maybe having a lot of Christians in your family while you're sort of drifting away from the church, but you still go to Thanksgiving and whatever. So I was not interested in rocking the boat or causing any trouble for anybody. Just very good roads, fair weather.
Yeah, good roads, good weather.
But I was privately, Googling probably like the mid-90s. Well, I guess you weren't Googling at that time. I was asking Jeeves about the OT levels. Web crawling, whatever the Google was in the mid-90s. I did actually search for. I was curious about the OT. I didn't learn about any of that stuff until I was long gone.
What year would we be talking?
Stuff.
How many years were you
Maybe
out?
like-
And then what did you do? Jump on the internet one day
Yep,
out of curiosity?
Yeah.
Really?
And I found like the zenu.net, I think, where someplace where you could actually like read, you actually see like scans of the handwritten documents.
Yeah.
And I had this moment of terror that if I looked at, like I was shaking, like if I look at these, I'm going to get sick. Something
what
bad's going to
happened to
happen. And I read them and I'm like, oh, well, this is just nonsense. This is people chain this to themselves in a briefcase.
Yes, I did.
What? This is, and then I was and from that moment on, I was never scared. I was never scared again.
Yeah, me too.
And
Exactly
I just thought,
how I got out.
I'm like, well, you know what? I'm not going to give my friends a hard time. They could believe whatever they want. We'll just carry on with life as usual.
I would have done the same thing. The only problem was, Joni, I had parents.
Wait, hold on.
And yeah.
I'm sorry. Is that true, OBG Foster?
I'll pull it up.
I'm sorry. Is this breaking news? Did you just blow my mind?
What?
That
Tell me
Matthew Perry died?
What?
Wow.
Wait a minute. I got to Google that now. I'll find out.
Everybody stop.
Perry, Friend star Perry dead at 54 after apparently drowning 51 minutes ago. What the fuck? Do you want to take a moment and just look at this fucking shit? I mean, guys, if you don't mind, I would just be curious. It's
No, this is like
shocking news.
This is intense.
Holy shit. From drowning.
Oh my God. I just read his
Wow,
memoirs.
Fucking 4? Really?
That guy, yeah. His audiobook was
Law
super
enforcement sources
intense.
tell us the actor was found Saturday. That's today at an LA area home where we're told he appears to have
in a
drowned.
jacuzzi.
Our sources say first responders rushed over on a call for cardiac arrest. It's unclear where exactly on the grounds this happened. Our sources say he was found in a jacuzzi at the home, and we're told there was no drugs found at the scene. We're also told there's no foul play involved, but I guess we'll see how that develops. Well, that's fucking sad. Jesus.
Wow.
Well, thanks for the as if
the chat was blowing up. We had to.
Okay,
So, yeah,
well, there
look,
you go, guys. Holy shit.
I
Man.
listened to his audiobook recently and it was read by him, and it was like listening to a person who's like experienced brain damage, which I think he probably actually has at this point, reading. Yeah, like his voice was whoo, but his story, holy shit, the things that guy's been through. The wow. And now I would say I would recommend that book, but now it has a sad ending, so maybe don't.
I know, as if what we were talking about wasn't sad enough. Okay.
Yeah, he's
Shit.
been
54, man. That's always so sad when people leave this world too early. 54, halfway through life.
I feel like he cheated death so many times.
That's true.
It's like there's some point like his bowels just like exploded inside of him. It was insane.
Was he in bad shape already, Jonie? He already had some problems?
Oh, yeah. You got to read the book. It's intense.
I don't want to now, man.
Well, yeah. But he'd been in rehab dozens of times. I think like in the 40s of times. More time on drugs than off, but he was.
But he put a lot of good work out there. Studio 60.
He was really
friends
about it, which is.
But how did he drown? They said no drugs. I bet you we'll hear more. And how do they know no foul play? I mean, this just happened. So
he could have had like a heart
attack or something
like that. Yeah.
Jonie, we've been going for almost 2 hours. I think we covered most of your story. I wanted to ask you one quick question to kind of put a cap on it, and maybe we'll have to have you back for part 2 if you want to.
I didn't get to this part about the ethics officer who was a skinhead.
Well, I don't want to stop it. I didn't know you had more stories to tell, but okay, go ahead. I'll save the. I mean, I don't want to rush you or anything.
I'll just get this part out because it's the only really sad part. The rest of this is just kind of dumb and funny.
And you can always come back for part 2, Jonie, by the way. I think there's many things that we probably haven't covered. There's no. I mean, we've been going for 2 hours, but you can always come back again, man. Don't feel like you have to rush it all.
First of all, I really want to, but cool. I got a couple more anecdotes.
Sure.
That I'll get through really quick because they're fun. The first one is
you don't have to speed. Take your time.
Okay, so pretty early on, in my front desk position, and remember, like I said, I was removed physically. I was distanced from everything. But I could always kind of see people rushing around. I could feel the energy of the place. I could get a hint of I could get a hint of the vibe of the place based on like the phone calls that were going in and out, the tension in people's voices that they're like, give me an outside line, So I had my finger on the pulse of the vibe of the place.
Mm-hmm.
And one day the vibe was real bad. And people were rushing around and they were stressed out and voices were tense. And it was like a palpable tension. And I found out you got to clean up the reception area because people from the Sea Org are coming. And I'm like, I don't know what any of those words mean. Because I didn't know what Sea Org was at this point. But all I knew is that they were coming and that everybody was super tense and fucking terrified.
Yep.
So I cleaned up made sure everything was nice and clean. But I'm very kind of empathic about other people's emotions. Like if other people are tense, I'm tense. So I was like, what is going to happen? These fucking scary people are coming. And I don't know what. Somebody's in trouble. I don't know who. I don't know what's going on. I just know that we're all very scared. And then I described the layout of the place where you kind of ascend this. So I would hear people ascending the steps, stomp, stomp, stomp up the steps before they appeared in front of me at the top of the steps.
Were these the steps, by the way, that we can see here at all?
Way over there on the right, there's a guy in like a black
here?
shirt. Yeah.
This person.
So you go up those steps and then you turn on the landing and go up the steps and then your head would pop up right in front of me at my desk.
Oh, this is underground that we're looking at?
This is
or
street
floor
level.
Number 1, street
This
level.
is
And your
street
reception
level.
was on level 2.
Yes.
The second floor. Okay.
And that's the area that was all under renovation.
Okay.
At the time. So I'm up there on the desk the day that these people are coming and I hear them coming up the steps and I was just totally projecting that even their footsteps were ominous and terrifying. And
they
then
are terrifying.
Well, and then they appear and I see these people in costumes.
Costumes is how it registered to you.
And I went,
Oh, well, there goes your ass to ethics.
And I blurt laughed.
Really?
Yeah, which nobody noticed, thankfully.
Yeah.
But I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is why we're scared?" Because they looked so ridiculous. I had
They
not been
terrified me, Joni. I remember as a
well,
kid, I thought they were fucking scary, man.
I had not been primed whatsoever for
Okay.
the like, it was literally like they were trick or treating. Like, it was so funny to me.
And all
And then
the amount of shit they have on them, it looks like
yes.
costumes, yes, but I did have priming. They terrified me when they first came down to the mission.
I couldn't believe everybody was so scared of these silly people in costumes, and I can't remember who the woman was. I've tried to find out. It was a short-haired, stern-faced woman whose pantyhose, like, made zip-zop sound when she walked, and I was told I was supposed to call her sir, and I was like, "Get the fuck out of here. This is this is ridiculous." But I love that story. I couldn't believe that it was like it was such a everybody was so scared of this thing that outside of those walls was laughable and
I know,
meaningless.
but I remember how scary they really were. And these were young kids, Joni. They were like 14 or 15, and I did try giving them shit initially, but I quickly learned through ethics or whatever that you don't talk back to them. And also, they only come to a mission or an org, as you know, if you're in trouble or the
Yeah,
statistics need to
so
get out. That's why it's so serious,
that's
you
why
know?
everybody was scared, and I
Yeah.
wish someday I'm gonna find out what they were there for, and I think that was around the time that
Mm.
the ED disappeared and they brought in Stefano the model. So it probably had something to do with that. But I knew that the office was in trouble. I don't know specifics. Someday I wanna find out.
It didn't have anything to do with, as Mandy asked, the
So
shooting and
So I was there in 91 through 92, and
Mhm.
that shooting happened, I think, in 95 or 96, so I was already gone by then, but,
My God.
it was still in that location, so if you pull out that photo again,
Sure.
by then, the street level had been renovated, so the person just walked in like, you can see, I can't yeah, okay, so where your mouse is like oh, the front desk is, like, there, kind of at the foot of the stairs where those guys are kinda clustered over yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where's the front desk? Back
Go
here or over
go to the
here?
it's up
So it
the
goes smaller a little bit? How about that?
So move your mouse to the left a little bit. Okay, let's stop. You went too far.
Right here where the triangle is?
Nope, over. Right there where those people are standing. Yes, that's the front. They're standing in front of it. So that's where I would have been sitting if I still worked there when that guy came in. So he just opened the door and walked right in there and just started shooting. 1996 says Mandy. Um
Wow. How many people, got injured or
well,
died? Do you
so
know?
I don't remember. I just the worst of it was a woman named Helen who was actually the woman who was the minister at my wedding. Her name was Helen Burke, and she was pregnant at the time. And I know that she retained the pregnancy and she did have the baby, but the baby was severely brain damaged from the incident.
That's so
And I
sad, man.
don't think she
Joni,
didn't live very long.
was it somebody specifically targeting Scientology because they were disgruntled, or was it random?
I think it was, wasn't it? It was like I haven't read about it in a while, and
Sure, it would have been.
when I learned about it at the time, I was these were my friends
Oh,
still.
man.
So
Did you know some people that actually got shot?
well, yeah, the woman Helen who was the minister at my wedding.
Besides, her, anybody
Besides
else that you
her,
know?
I don't remember. I just remember that she, I think, experienced the worst of it. But it was
I
fucking scary because it's like, oh, I would have been sitting there not that long
That's
ago.
terrifying. And by the way, Joni, I hate to say this out loud, but I am so surprised there hasn't been more incidents like that because they take our family. You know, they've had a few incidences. I remember there was one in Australia where a man stabbed a security guard a few years ago. But the fact that please understand, I have to speak to the algorithm and to the audience in YouTube. I'm not encouraging anybody. I'm just trying to tell you the emotions that were going through my brain so people can understand the anger. I wanted to blow up one of their buildings. I'm surprised that somebody hasn't done it. And then I wanted to take my family out and then take myself out. And the fact that somebody hasn't done that, especially a lot more, because Joni, you cannot get your family back. They
Well, and
they
they literally create like psychosis in people's
they
brains.
exactly because Hubbard was psychotic and he does a brain transfer over to you. So the fact that there isn't more incidents like that, I'm actually blown away, no pun intended. But again, we're not encouraging anybody to do that, just to get across the level of anger, of the control that they have over our loved ones and shit, especially when you have loved ones in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine they must have learned something from the Portland incident and put some sort of measures in place, because it was very tragic that it was just the nice, good people that I knew.
Yeah.
Do you have that picture I sent you of me at the Christmas party? It's the only picture I have of myself at that time.
These are the only 3 that I believe I have, but did you send it over in the email?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'll find it while you're how about you covered the skinhead incident and I'll go to the email
Okay.
and find it.
So I was living with the Kevin guy, I was gonna say his name. The Kevin guy, I've already said it.
You
So
can't edit that out.
the guy I was living with who helped me get off staff,
Who's still a Scientologist,
with
right?
whom I was out exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So he cheated on me a lot, which is what we would call out. He was super out 2D, but now also so was I, but did it way more than me. Like he did it pathologically. But so and also he was abusive and physically, mentally, just a bad dude, and I wanted to break up with him. I wanted to leave him. So he dragged me to the ethics officer. This was after I'd routed off staff, so I was just public at this point, right? So we went. He drove me to CC. Okay, so the person who was the ethics officer at the time was a guy named Kurt Sindelar, and he was young and very cute, except he had the word skin tattooed on his forehead in big letters, SKIN, because he previously had been a skinhead, and he wasn't anymore. And he tried to kind of grow his hair sort of long. But you couldn't avoid it. It was just huge across his forehead. But other than that, he was very nice. But he was the ethics officer, and he was not qualified, but they needed somebody to be. You got to have one.
Mm-hmm.
So my boyfriend drags me into to talk to this guy to talk about how I want to blow the relationship. So if you guys, here's a quiz for the chat.
Great.
Here's the quiz.
Why does someone blow?
Why do you think I wanted to blow the relationship? What do you think they said was the reason I wanted to blow the relationship?
Let's let people answer first. I'll take a crack at it too, because I think I might know the answer. There's 2 reasons why someone might blow a relationship or a subject or a study, right?
Yeah, here's a spoiler. None of those reasons will be because the person is bad and you should get away from them.
Exactly, but they don't teach you about how to deal with real sociopaths or anything.
No.
Someone says an engram, incorrect, right, Joni? When they get, I mean, maybe, but okay, we got one for out ethics.
Close.
Okay, the tattoo.
Nothing to do with the tattoo.
Because you were out 2D.
No, well, close. My TV. Oh, Chow Yun's got it perfectly.
I was going to get to it. We're getting closer too with my TV. That can be a reason. And at the bottom, Chow, in my TV is a misunderstood word, which can cause you to have overts and withholds. Yes. I bet you didn't know that little tech trick, did you, Johnny? Because there's even a bulletin that says at the bottom of all overts and withholds, which is what caused you to leave a subject, is a misunderstood word.
Yeah.
Or it could have been this one. You dyed your hair black, right?
Well, no. He was attracted to me at the time when I had black hair.
Nice.
So, So Kurt, the skinhead ethics officer, told me that I wanted to blow the relationship because I clearly had overts and withholds.
You could
And that,
never leave under any other circumstances. It's not that anybody's ever abusive in Scientology. There's no victims. It's always an overt and a withhold, something you did.
yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
the correct thing for me to do was to do a full OW write-up, which is where I
Right.
sit down with a pen and paper, and I wrote down not just that relationship, but my entire second dynamic. So I wrote down
Right.
every
Wow.
sin I'd ever committed on the second dynamic. So everything I'd ever done wrong. And
And if you were on the meter, they'd have you go into past lives and what you did on Arcturus, the Palladians, and other galaxies
yeah.
and stuff too. It really gets that absurd, but it's always your fault.
Yeah. So the idea was if you do a full OW write-up and you attest and
That's the meter thing.
yeah, and it's determined that yes, this is a full OW write-up. If at that point you still want to break up, that's fine. Then you just you don't want to do it for the wrong reasons. You could still break up with him then, but
Technically.
you should do the OW write-up to make sure it's not because of you that you want to leave.
Yeah, and usually
So
by the time you're getting beaten down by that, though, you do rationalize it or justify it as to why you don't want to leave. So it generally kind of keeps you in an abusive relationship too. They lean towards not letting you get out of that thing because they're so convinced it's the overts and withholds that are really causing it.
yeah, I did look. I was going to say I didn't fall for it, but I did. I did do the full OW write-up, and then I left.
Oh, really? Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Because that's not easy.
Yeah, and then not long after that, I met the guy I ended up being married to for like a decade.
Please
But
tell me he's a good dude.
the guy I married? Oh yeah, he's great.
Great.
I
Is
mean,
he
he's
the
my
one running the robot in the back?
no.
He's the tech geek?
We're not married anymore.
Oh, okay.
We haven't been married for 20 for a long time.
But he's not
But
a
he's
Scientologist and he's a good guy?
no, he's the guy who is still cursorily involved. He's the guy who works for the consulting firm who lives with the OSA
Wow.
lady. That's my ex-husband.
Wow.
But he's still a great guy. But yeah, so the point of the story is I went to the ethics officer and described an abusive living situation, and he told me that I shouldn't leave until I admit all my crimes. So
Right.
that's probably the worst thing that ever happened to me in that organization. And it wasn't great. Definitely soured me on things. Definitely put me off. I didn't blame Kurt. It wasn't Kurt's fault. It was bad tech. And
That's what you thought, Joni, even though he
yeah,
was he an abusive person or not? Your
the
ex.
oh yeah, no, he absolutely was.
Okay.
But Kurt, the ethics officer, I didn't blame him when he told me that
Wow.
that I couldn't leave because he was just following the tech. So yeah, I never felt angry at any particular people
Do you feel a
because
little bit
everybody
when you look back at it, do you feel like maybe you have some emotion there that, you're kind of is resurfacing all these years later about that?
sure, it's almost unbearable to think about the people I knew then who were so kind and are still in it
I
and
know.
they're older. They're going to be retirement age and they've given their whole lives to it, and they didn't, working all night every night, working weekends, not being around their kids for this dumb clear the planet nonsense that's never going to happen. And I get like I feel I don't know who to put that anger on. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know where it goes. But it gets very messy when you think about these people I care about. If they saw me having this conversation with you, they wouldn't be my friends anymore. That pisses me off too. But who? I don't know. at Elron, I guess. Yeah,
That's
I
really
don't
where
know.
it belongs, but I feel your pain on that. That's what I said to my parents a million times. Like, this stupid thing has come
I'm
between us and they could never let it go, Joni, their entire fucking life, man.
I'm so grateful that it was just that my family never like I was just the weird black sheep who did this weird thing one time. I can't imagine what it's like to have family,
It
to have family
sucks.
in it.
It sucks. And like you said, I don't know. I didn't know where to put that anger. That's why I said earlier I wanted to blow up their fucking building because I couldn't get my goddamn family back.
Well,
It drives you crazy.
if you take that kind of impulse, which is, I think, understandable,
It's normal.
and then combine it with whatever sort of mind fuckery they've done on people, that you're right, I'm surprised there aren't more. I mean, maybe there are and we don't know about it.
I think we'd hear about it all over the news if a Scientology building was blown up, but I don't know why it hasn't been more. Again, I feel like I'm saying something I shouldn't, but you're just bringing back the feeling of
In
having
Minecraft.
Yeah, in Minecraft. We can take that. Doesn't work though. I'm telling you, Joni, that's why it took so long to forgive my parents or whatever you want to call it, because I had to process the anger. It couldn't go anywhere. Thank God I had an acting class to act out the trauma. But that was the thing. They're living their life oblivious as to the pain that they caused me. They're living in that bubble world. And my dad exited this fucking world as an OT8. I think you can get in so deep that you can extract yourself. And even if you do, you'll be an indie Scientologist and still believe it once this sickness gets inside your head. It's really hard to get out of. I mean, you were only in for a year, and look at what we talked about tonight. You have tons of stories. You're still, know people that are Scientologists that are never going to get out. And this is just one jackass that died in 1986, where he just hijacked so many people's minds, and there's no way to offload the anger. The only way I could handle it is to take it unto myself. I was an actor, so I could lean into it. I mean, I was made to be able to actually possibly be able to process it. But even then, I had a plan where I was going to blow up their building or do some harm, shoot everybody, take out my parents. I threatened them, and they had to get a restraining order on me.
Did you actually have these fantasies?
Yeah, I got to tell you, when it came time to do it, this is why I know I couldn't. Thank God. Anybody that does do this, I mean, because I got a taste of it. I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, Joni. So I just wanted out. I mean, year after year after year, this went on. So I really did think about these things, and I wasn't able to carry it out. But I'm surprised other people haven't. Like I said, if I wasn't young, I woke up in my early 30s. If I didn't have an acting class to process the trauma, I already had anger issues. My emotions were already fucked up, and so was my head. I think I would have done something, but I just didn't want to give up. I also felt like while this is happening, there's a learning lesson here. There's a rhyme and a reason for this. The trauma was horrible, but I was also having my emotions open up for the first time. I could feel actual joy while I was feeling sadness and sickness. So there's this weird dichotomy going on. And I studied a lot of books so I could understand what was happening to me. It's normal when people leave a cult. My old life is breaking down so a new one can come in. And if I can just see this out without killing my parents or blowing up a Scientology building, I bet you I'll get something out of this. So I'm fine now, man. I'm still healing with these things, but I
Do you
don't have
feel
any problem with I
on
don't
the
have
other
any
side
problem
of
with my
that?
parents. I killed off my parents a long time ago in my head. I had to deal with the trauma. I got something out of it. It made me a stronger person. They're oblivious and probably will be for the rest of their life. I am finally talking to my mom, which is weird, in like 15 years. So I don't care anymore. I already processed the dark night of the soul, but that's something I was never able to share with my dad. I probably won't share it with my mom, and just my own personal secret that they'll never know what they put me through, but forgive them for they know not what they do. They were trying to help me. They really thought they were doing the right thing. That's what makes it's so sad. And if I had to put the blame on somebody, it's Hubbard. It's Hubbard, the guy
Yeah.
that died in 1986 that caused all of this. Not even Miscavige. He just
We
perpetrates
could
it.
be a little mad at
He
him,
just
right?
perpetrates it though. Yeah, but the guy who started it that should have been thrown in a mental hospital that would prevented all this from happening, and that was his biggest fear about he knew he was nuts and he didn't want to, that's why he went so anti-psychiatry. If the system would have just thrown him in a loony bin, many, many lives would be very different.
Yeah. But
It's all
then
just, it's
but
just
then I
sad.
wouldn't
It's
have
sad
met
all
you,
around.
so
It's true. That's what I'm saying. There's benefits too. We can't go back and do it over again. I accept it and I got a lot of benefits out of it. But if I didn't make it on the other side, I would just be another casualty like my best friend, and many other people I know that died young that didn't get to the other side because of this psychopath. It's just all so fucked up. And it's just one lunatic that did all this. It's quite bizarre.
Hmm.
Jesus. This got heavy real quick, didn't it?
Whew.
I mean, there's our therapy. There's the conclusion. Try to
I
get to
think
the other side, talk out about it like Jonie's doing, right? And you're
I
still
think
processing it.
art is the answer.
Yeah. That's what
I wanna
Marilyn would say too with her crocheting. Kelly Copter would say with her
crochet
singing. Yeah.
her crocheting.
Art is the answer. That's a great
I really,
tagline.
really wanna come back and talk to you about
Hey,
art and
you
Scientology.
that's what you hit me up with on the next talk. So Joni, rather
Yes.
than trying to squeeze everything in, because I didn't even know if we'd be able to get an hour, but because I learned a lot with you talking, and I knew we were going to riff back and forth. We've been going for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I still want to answer. We have 10
Yeah,
pinned
questions.
comments, if you
Yeah, yes.
wouldn't mind. I'd like
And
to
I have a
throw some
couple of
questions at you.
I have a
But
couple questions I got from Discord also.
oh, sure. And people do want you to come back. So we will definitely do a part 2. It's going to have to do
Yay.
with art, guys, and
Yeah.
anything that we haven't finished off, because I feel like I'm rushing her, but we can't cover everything in one broadcast. So it's better to
So
split it up.
here's my teaser. I didn't get to the LSD story, so you'll just have to have me
Okay.
back if you want to hear the LSD story. It's
I'm
gonna be
looking
such a
at your
letdown after all this build up.
No, it won't. I'm looking at your bullet points here, and there's actually there's quite a few other ones we didn't
Did you ever
cover.
find the picture though?
I did. Thank you for
Okay.
reminding me. Perfect.
So the only picture I have from my time there was that this was a Christmas party, and this was in
Wow.
that street level space before the renovations were done. So it was still a big, ugly mess in there. They just kind of put up some decorations to have a little party, and that's me.
Where are you at?
I'm right in front of the picture of LRH with the black hair,
That's you.
dancing with a little girl.
Little hottie. Okay. That's
Yeah.
you right behind the maniac himself. And everybody here seems to have dark hair. The little
Yeah.
blonde kids running around. Look at how happy you look, though.
It was a fun party.
Yeah. They do have fun there. They do have fun.
That's the only picture. It's the only thing I had. I had certificates. I had stuff that I threw it all away. I threw it all away.
So did I, and I regret it because I wish I had
Me
that
too.
material.
Me
Why do you
too.
Why do you regret it? Just to be able to
Because I could have like
bring it back?
scanned it and sent it to you and be like, "Look at the
Yeah, I
cert
know.
I got for student
know.
hat."
I know. Nasty, you are a legendary auditor, my friend. Good to see you in the chat. Just wanted to plug him real quick because there's a lot of people that aren't even in the cult that make it their business to expose them, which I absolutely love. Did we you know what? We're not even going to be able to get to the Wallersheim and all the other questions that we
That was before my time, was the short answer.
Are you able to answer any of it though in the next one, just out of curiosity? Because that would be interesting to take up. And if not, we have plenty of other
Look, I don't
things to
know a lot
talk
about it, honestly,
Okay.
because
Then we'll skip that one.
yeah.
Joni, how about we take up these questions? We'll have you
Yes.
back for part 2. I'd like to do next week if you don't mind. I mean, we're going to do Maryland next week on Saturday. Maybe you could come on next Sunday, same bat time, same bat place, because people want to have you come back. And you're very interesting to talk to, my friend. Really, this has been super, super intriguing. Let me fire you some questions. We got 10 of them. Star R, thanks for the question. How do the members find out someone has been declared? Okay, we already covered that.
Yeah.
A couple of these we might actually have already covered. Okay, we already answered that, right? You never ran
Rusty.
into Rusty and Mary from Delphi. Does
I
that
feel
ring
like
a
I
bell?
need last names.
Blow
Need
Drill.
last
If
names.
you can put, he's a friend of mine. So if you, I'm going to talk to him anyways. I'm sure that will come up. So I'll get the last names if he has them. Maybe trigger you for the next interview. And then we already covered this one, I believe, when I studied psychology. That's the narcissism question. We have more too if we already covered these. Do you think, though, that understanding psychology can help a person who's in a cult understand more and thus be able to get out? That's a conversation Dusty was having with Lady Veritas. I'm sure they've already sorted it. I'm sorry.
Did that
We
one.
covered so many of these. Are we going to get to one that we haven't? Is it just
Yep,
me or
we did that one too.
Okay. Damn, you're fast, man. You just read them quick then and see if we already covered them. This one we kind of didn't, but I'll just answer it real quick since I want to hit questions on you. Doug, didn't you feel super dehydrated and cotton mouth doing the Pure Up after getting high? No, because they give you plenty of fluids and they have you drink this disgusting thing called CalMag, etc., which fills you with calcium and magnesium. Dehydration was not part of it. Did we get this now? Oh, this is from Maryland.
I always wanted to do the Purif because
No, you don't.
I love saunas.
I know, but it's saunas for 5 hours, overdosing with vitamins, and people have had liver damage and sometimes
Yeah.
died from it. It's not fun.
And they would go outside and run around. Like I didn't want to run.
It sounds healthy
I
though,
hate
right,
running.
Jonie? But it's not. It's actually breaking you down physically and mentally, and it's a huge brainwashing step to set you up for the rest of the bridge. That's what I was ecstatic. I was seeing colors I've never seen before. Everything
that's not
seemed
good.
so much brighter. No, I was being massively, massively disassociated, and I damaged the shit out of my body. You trust me, you didn't want to do it. I would pretend to agree with the cult leader, but inside I was fuming. This is from Maryland.
Yeah,
Goddamn,
so
she
that's what
gave
we
an
were talking
amazing
about.
story.
Talking about TRs, keeping your TRs. Yeah.
Good thing
So
Marlene Sweeney, that's her cult leader, didn't have those soup cans. That's when we were talking earlier, Jonie, where Marty was showing the pins test, which is a very clever trick from the psychopath to get us to believe in the shit. She was a, quote, Christian psychic. A lot of these new age cults have to do with spirituality and psychic, because how can you prove it, right? Doug, from philosophy, do a lot of people leave when they go OT and don't get the superpowers? Well, it's twofold philosophy, because you might be even more indoctrinated. I didn't want to leave, even though the OT levels were killing me. I talked about the nervous breakdown I had specifically on OT3. I was starting to lose it right before that on OT2. But unless that book was dropped off on my doorstep, the only explanation I have for the problems is I didn't get the tech right, and I would have kept going. So if you're indoctrinated forever like me, my dad, for example, never left. He's been an OT8 for at least 20 years. So you have the extremity of the indoctrination, but also on the flip side of that, because you've been in so long, you might be privy to the abuses and you might be so broken down. And finally, you realize the next level isn't going to handle it. Yeah, I do think you can leave down, but not probably without breaking down first. And sometimes that can be really extreme. Yeah.
I mean, there's no way for us to know statistically, but don't a lot of OTs end up unaliving themselves? I mean, isn't the
Yes.
ratio high, or is that just?
No, I think you're right, because it creates psychosis. So yeah, plenty of people have unalived themselves on the OT, or they get cancer maybe and think they can handle it with the auditing, etc.
Oh God! Every time somebody dies, an OT dies of cancer, I always get really sad because I think, God, their last thought was probably that they failed themselves
Yeah. Can you
somehow.
imagine leaving this
That
world with
bums me
getting
out.
all that wrong? I know, me too. That's why I feel fucking sorry for my dad,
Well,
man.
no,
It's like he got it all wrong, you know?
but I mean, they died thinking that they didn't do a good job handling their BTs or whatever,
Yes.
that they didn't.
So insane. If only I could have told my dad, it wasn't real, Pops. It wasn't real. Take my
Ugh.
hand. Come with me. It's all an illusion. We can have a family again. But you can't break the mind control once a psychopath puts it in your head. I wish there was you ever heard of the one-shot clear, Jonie? Where there's this
No.
process where if you just say the right question, someone will magically go clear. I wish there was a
What's the
one-shot
question?
question. It's bullshit. He never actually came up that it was like a theory, which allowed him to make the levels to clear. But he's always trying to come up with this one process. One of them was try not to be 2 feet back of your head. In other
Try
words,
not to be?
how do I even make sense of this? So one of the goals is exteriorization, getting outside of your body. Let's say that that's close to the state of clear. If you try to be, 2 feet back of your head would obviously be you exteriorize. So
Right.
some judo, gymnastics, reverse psychology, magic question that hovered. He didn't even come up with this. Some guy knocked on his door. There's like a legend about this. Some dude knocked on his door like late at night when Hubbard's in a cabin. And he says, "Sir, I got it. I got the one shot clear finally." It's not be 2 feet back of your head. It's try not to be 2 feet back of your head. And Hubbard grabbed that and says, "Shit, we got it. The one shot clear." It didn't work, but That's a real story, by the way.
Oh my God. Everybody right now try not to be 2 feet back of their head.
Hey, if it works to anybody, go ahead, give the command again, Joni. And then if it works, guys, we'd like to know in the comments if you did indeed exteriorize. Please give the command with tone 40 attention to the audience.
Try not to be 2 feet back of your head.
Well, there went half the audience, so I guess it works. I just saw the numbers drop. Joni, let's end off here. We got all the.
What did you have for breakfast?
Is that an actual question?
I think that's what you're supposed to ask psychotic people, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was like if you're on the street, if somebody comes up to you on the street and they're having like a mental, like a psychotic break of some kind, if you ask them what they had for their breakfast, it actually works, you guys.
Like in normal psychology,
actually
this isn't
works.
something in Scientology.
No, this is something I learned at CC.
Oh, really? That was a Scientology process, so to speak?
It might have been just something a friend figured out, like a trick. I don't know if it was anywhere written. But next time you're walking down the street and somebody's like having a woo in your face, it really does work. It's people stop and go, "Oh, what did I have for breakfast?"
This is a good question to end off of, and because it'll allow you to riff on what are your beliefs now post Scientology. Do you believe in telepathy, etc.? Can I add to that, Joni? You said initially that you kind of were a seeker, that was part of wanting to find some spirituality at 18, which is a good thing, especially at that age, because most people are just trying to get laid or worrying about how they look. So you were a seeker. Did Scientology leave anything sour in your mouth? Did you get anything out of it? Did you throw the baby out with the bathwater? Where do you stand today with any of your belief systems? And do you believe in telepathy? Can you read my mind right now?
Yes, and you should be ashamed.
I'm sorry. God damn it. Shit, you can.
Wow.
I'm not even going to say it out loud. My bad. I'll talk about that off air with you, Joni. Sorry. I'm going to think. I'm going to think like Mark. Like
think about Depeche Mode.
Mark, and think about Depeche Mode. Yes. Damn, you're like a human e-meter.
There's always a part of my brain that's thinking about Depeche Mode. That was so many questions. Let me think. So,
like, what are your spiritual beliefs, man?
I was curious about the science aspect of it. I think maybe what I got from it is that there's still something there. Like I said, when I did get into a therapy group just within the last few years,
nice.
where we had like worksheets and homework and like steps. Like I'm still drawn to that sort of thing. It has nothing to do with like a spiritual whatever. It's just sort of like mental health tricks. But I since then I've come to the personal conclusion that there's no Satan or spirit, or that that there's anything going on that isn't our own brain chemistry creating its own magic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So, which I hope isn't too off-putting to people, but that's.
Hey, it's your beliefs. Would you categorize yourself therefore as, say, atheist, agnostic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unsufferable atheist is how I would describe it.
Okay.
No, I'm not that unsufferable. And I did definitely go through a phase where I was pretty insufferable atheist, but it's a long journey. I also, I had a Baptist upbringing, so that's a lot to work through.
Oh Lord, you didn't even cover that. I didn't know that. Do you think that had anything to do with why you might have wound up in Scientology that offered something maybe drastically different from that?
Yeah.
Is that why you were looking spiritually, maybe?
Because it was too. Because like the idea of, oh, you can make things better with prayer. Like I didn't buy that. But the idea of like you can make things better with this technology, I'm like, oh, that's actually a thing that's true and real.
Yes.
But then I'm like, okay, that's bullshit also. So it's easier to just be like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to try to live for now and not be a dick today. And that's going to be like as far as my spiritual quest goes, is how can I not be a dick today.
Exactly. And before going to superpowers, just to answer Lady's question for myself, yeah, try being a good person first, which is really challenging and can be a lifetime endeavor before I try to learn how to walk through walls and read people's minds. But my jury's out on this. I've always felt a continuity since a kid. I don't know what to make of that. Before, during, and after Scientology, I have believed that I'm a spirit, that there's something more to life, but I'm also not sure. I've done, I think a lot of it is the brain, and that a lot can be explained with psychology, both normal psychology and advanced psychology. But once I got to the end of that road and studied everything, because so much of Scientology's magic can be taken apart with simply understanding, like anybody understands the brain, really, but getting enough understanding of how hypnosis works, for example, to explain the winds that I thought were spiritual. 100% of my past lives in Scientology, because I spent years going through them in diaries, were all implanted.
Wow.
But to me, that doesn't mean, therefore, that there isn't a spiritual reality. I
Sure.
did feel a guiding hand of sorts because I didn't have a mind to work with that led me out of this when I wanted to go blow up their building and kill myself. I hold open the idea, and I've always felt that way anyways, that there is probably an actual spiritual reality. But I'm very careful on saying that I believe that or that I know it. I keep my mind open, and I'm not going to get back into a situation. I mean, it would be impossible to go back into a new age woo-woo cult, which is
Mhm.
kind of how I describe Scientology because of learning about psychology and a lot about the brain and shit. But I do keep an open mind about there being something more. I've always felt that, and I can't explain it, but I believe in it.
But there's no way for you to know
No, I know.
that it's not just sort of the chemistry of
It very well
the
could be.
electrical meat folds in your brain. And I think
Hmm.
people seem to feel disappointed by that. They're like, "No, that's a disappointing option."
I
I'm like,
know
"No,
because it
it's
makes it.
fucking amazing." It is like a sort of a telepathy.
So you do believe in telepathy?
I don't not, because
The
I do
brain could
think
probably work that way too.
our brains and our chemicals and our hormones, we don't even begin to understand all this
That's
shit
right.
that they
That's why
do.
I don't go back into
I
woo-woo
just
land, and I
I
don't
j
I don't feel like I know the answer to that, and I don't need to know the answer to that. Like you
Right.
said, the most important thing is to try to be a good person,
Yeah.
not desensitize yourself from reality in the here and now, and drift off into the ether, which is what these new age cults in particular offer you. I can guarantee you that doesn't work. But I'm just right in the middle, Joni.
I'm
I've
not
just
gonna attribute it to a creator,
yeah.
is all. I'm just I
That will keep you out of religion too, which can be
yeah.
another fiasco. Yeah. Well,
So,
you're certainly safe from being from well, that's probably I mean, Scientology didn't get you, but you definitely sound proofed up from joining any future cult, shall we say.
yeah. Yeah, I could be,
Here we go. Maybe the
look,
chemistry
I don't
is
wanna
the
I don't
magic, or the
I don't want people
magic
to
is
not
the
like me,
chemistry.
but that's what I'm saying, because I used to find that answer disappointing when I had a very long and
Mhm.
painful transition into atheism, and I did find it very disappointing until I started, reading books by people who, made me realize, like, no, actually, it's even more awesome than if a god made it, you know what I mean? Like,
I had
so
this debate with
I had to find a wonder again.
no, I hear you. I had that debate with Andrew Gold. He's an atheist, and we got into a debate about that. I mean, hey, I like I said, I don't fucking know, but I as a kid, I always felt there was something more. And yeah, it can be a letdown to let that go. I'm not letting it go because I don't believe in it. I've just always felt something more.
Sure.
That's all I can say on that, man.
Well, I've been in I'm as a person who's an artist, and I've been in some really intense creative collaborations, and you can't tell me that we didn't have a sort of telepathy when you're in those kinds of um
But like you said, yeah, but that
but
could
it's
just be a brain thing, brain
yeah,
to
which
brain.
is still fucking
Doesn't have
cool.
to mean God or anything. Yeah.
It's still super rad.
I would,
And you
you know what trips me out though, Joni, now that we're on this subject? If we did live one life and we go into blankness or wherever, Christians will say you go to hell. or you're going to hang out at the right-hand side of God. I always had this thought where if we lived once and we were just the body and the brain, wouldn't we have already lived our life a long time ago and we simply wouldn't be here? Like the very chance of us being alive seems impossible. Do you understand what I'm saying?
What? See,
Okay, that only makes sense in my brain. I've thrown that out a few times to other people and it doesn't register, but that's always something I even thought of as a kid. I'm just saying, like, if we live once
yeah.
in the entire human history where there's been lives, surely, and we only live, let's say 80 years, give or take, we would have already lived it and we wouldn't be here now. Do you understand? Does that make sense to anybody in the audience, what I just said? Or has that only made sense to me? Because that doesn't register when I say that to other people in general. That doesn't make any sense? What isn't making sense about that? In other words, like, so you're going to, let's just say you're 40 and you're going to be dead in 50 years. So there's no more lives after that. So you won't exist after this. So why would you be existing now? Why wouldn't you have already lived those 90 years, thousands of years ago? That's all I'm saying.
Because it took.
Because you were just a body popped out of the womb, right?
It took all of the ancestors that much time to do just the right procreating with just the right people to produce me. But that makes it sound like,
I know what you're saying. It's just a perception of how our framework, because we have to have a framework, right, in order to go forward. So whether you're an atheist, a Christian, a Scientologist, or a spiritualist, whatever that perception is, that's going to frame how we see everything, isn't it? Somebody said it earlier, Jonie, and we'll end off here. We don't. I know that I don't fucking know, so I'm not going to label myself anything. I'm always going to keep learning, knowing I'll never know the answer, and I don't need to before I die. But I'm not going to lock down on any belief system. That's just what I've decided, because it terrified me believing that I knew as a Scientologist. And as Socrates, or as Bill and Ted would say, Socrates says, wisdom is knowing how little you know. That's my fundamental perception.
I read a book recently called Why There's No Fish. Is that what it's called? Why There's No Such Fish? Anyway, but it's this woman who was raised by like atheist parents, right? And she really had a hard time when she was young with the idea, like her dad would just be like, oh, look at it, it all means nothing, ha ha, and she was like, but that's terrifying. Like, she really found it scary. But she described her dad as being like very jovial about it. Like, he thought it was great. He's like, it all means nothing, so we got to be our best selves right now. And he was like the most generous and loving person she ever knew. And she said, I aspired to wear his nihilistic clown shoes. And that phrase really stuck with me. I'm like, that's what I want. I want to wear nihilistic clown shoes. If I were to put a name to my beliefs, it would be that.
I definitely have an MU now, because I didn't get that at all. I was not able to follow that.
It requires, it's just the idea of it. You accept that all you have is right now, and that everything means nothing, and choose to be as generous and kind as you can, even though
that we can both agree on.
It all means nothing.
I think it means something. I mean, if we don't have, like I said, I agree to disagree, man. I can't say that I'm an atheist.
I don't even disagree.
I would say I'm agnostic. I don't believe there's no creator, but I'm never going to figure it out. And somebody said earlier, whatever the hell, if there was such a metaphysical reality, our brains are not going to be able to wrap our minds around it here anyway. So what's the point? It would be so different than what our brains are going to come up with. We ain't going to suss it. That's just my opinion.
Don't worry about it.
I don't.
Although we will have a debate in the future about how agnostic is not a real thing.
Really? Well, like I said, I don't even like to put a label on it. As Socrates says,
it's a very pedantic
wisdom
argument.
is knowing how little you know. Before we roll out of here, because we're now going on 3 hours, and we will bring you back for part 2, because people really like you in the audience here, and this has been a very stimulating conversation. Do you have any socials or Twitters or YouTubes that you would like to talk about, and then I'll put them in
Well,
the link in the description box
I am a
after we're done.
I am a Twitch streamer, but it doesn't have anything to do with any of this.
It
So I
doesn't
don't
matter
know
though. Please
if
tell us
it's
what you do.
I have one Twitch channel where I watch VHS tapes. I collect and watch VHS tapes.
Right.
They're all over here. They're just off camera. You can't see them. But you can see all my VCRs.
Yeah, and you have a kick-ass setup, by the way. I'm going to remove myself for 1 minute just so you can be full screen.
Yeah. So I got several analog video mixing. It's like a 1990s cable access setup in here. Many VCRs, and then over that way, stacks of VHS tapes. So yeah, we collect and watch dumb old VHS tapes. And the channel is called VC Archives.
And what kind of VCR, what kind of movies and do you put up?
I like to watch stuff. I don't like to watch movies. I like to watch stuff that's not movies. Like, for example, yesterday we watched we did some hate watching of some Christian propaganda.
Oh, nice. We should run some of that next time. Do you have those on files? We could do a presentation on that.
I only watch them off tapes, but I'm set up to do that. We watched some Cubs. I'm flipped.
Oh, shit. Sorry. I want to get you full screen. Please talk about what you're talking about and throw some stuff. I'm going to throw my ass off for a second.
You can't see it. It's the Cub Scout Leaders Fast Starts. This is the sort of thing that I collect. Stuff that's not movies. I have a lot of MLM related tapes. I love to watch home movies. Last night we watched an 80s Mary Kay how-to. And I do want to show you guys something. Hold on. I do have something.
These are cool. All right, she's going to present, then we'll roll out. Yes, vintage tech and video. Cool.
This is from 1990.
No way. I thought you said you didn't read Dianetics, but you got the video.
It's the video. This is fun because Claire Headley appears in this briefly. And probably other people I haven't figured out yet.
She's in there?
Yeah. This tape is super dumb and boring, but
I know that tape.
Japan of Green Gables really wants. I think we're going to watch it in a couple of weeks because Japan really wants to. Because Japan, he follows me on
we should have a party to watch that. I want to watch that with you too because that's one of the funniest videos ever.
Yeah, I know you all are mostly YouTube people, but Twitch is so much better. Twitch is so much more fun than YouTube.
I know, but
guys.
when you're old like me, it's so hard to figure out. I haven't even figured out Discord yet.
Look, I don't even think you're not. I don't know. How old are you? Can I ask? Is that
50?
Rude?
I'm 50.
Okay, well, we're the same age, and I can do it. If I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, but you've been doing this shit for years. I saw the editing that you're capable of doing with Michelle's video. You're in another dimension when it comes to, I'm just not a tech guy, Joni. I'm just not, and I'm envious of people that can do this shit.
To enjoy watching Twitch.
How about this? How about we have some kind of Dianetics watch party, maybe even in part 2, because I'd really like to go over some of those fucking videos. I didn't know Claire was in that either. That's hilarious.
Would be, I could actually probably connect. I'll have to do a little research. We'd have to do a little test to see if I could actually connect my whole production to Restream. Or
that would be cool.
No, I have an easier option. We'll talk about it later.
Sure. So,
but look, this tape is super boring and dumb, but it's very fun to watch.
But it would be fun to go over. Exactly. So I'm going to leave a link in the description box. Joni, please send them over to me. We'll talk when we finish here. But I'm going to link in the description box because she has some very, very cool stuff, which I've seen, but is totally mind-blowing and out of my league. And I just really appreciate you coming on, my friend, and having the courage to actually speak out. Do you feel any better having actually said it, or do you need to process it for a bit? Or are you going to take this video down tomorrow?
No, I don't think. There, I just sent you. Okay, I just sent you a couple links.
Thank you.
I don't look. I mean, I don't think I said anything too
no
antagonistic.
No, but you probably will possibly lose some Facebook friends that are Scientologists. But we talked about that going into this. You can
Yeah.
handle it, right? If
Yeah,
that
and
even happens.
but then it occurred to me, I talked to my son he's 28, and I'm like, "Look, I'm doing this thing. Worst case scenario, your dad won't be able to talk to me
That
anymore,"
sucks. I hope that doesn't happen.
which is an absurd thing to have to say to a person.
I know. I
But
hope that
I'm like,
doesn't happen.
I doubt it. I doubt it. I feel like he would just roll his eyes anyway.
Joni, speaking of Dianetics, how about we end off? Again, thank you so much for
Thank
having the courage.
you.
And every time someone like you does this, I promise you it will encourage more people to go, if she can do
Yes.
it, I can do it. Why don't we end off with Dianetics and two of Scientology's brightest pupils? And if this doesn't convince you to want to sign up to Dianetics and Scientology, I don't know what will.
He come up with Dianetics 1950. So a lot of the guys were interested in studying how to clear your mind. That's where Scientology started. And then it got to be the process.
At one point, I felt I had reached the state of clear, right?
Which is what?
Which is in Scientology, I guess, is the area where you you're one with all, see all, know all. At least that's the way I interpreted it at the time.
You got to that state?
I thought I had.
I was in prison when Dianetics first started. Yeah, 1950. We fought the establishment. Black Muslims were coming in with the Quran on the dark side of the moon.
Sometimes you just feel that you're in total control of your surroundings and can literally will everything around you to happen. And I call, the Scientologist place, the local place where I was first here in LA. Then I even tried to get hold of Mr. Hubbard at one point years ago.
You know how the occult is. You get involved in all kinds of under darkness things that are running under nooses, that are running through I don't know, it would take too long to explain it all.
Clear as you can, as I saw it, is seeing it all, knowing it all, feeling that you're in total control of everything, but seeing it all. Seeing the complete picture and feeling that you can control that picture. For me, that's what it was. Feeling that I was one with everything.
How to clear your mind from past confusion, how to resurrect the soul to be reborn within yourself. So that's where Scientology started.
Then I learned there was nowhere to go from clear.
When
but
you
at the
called the
same
Scientologists
time,
and said, "I've
but at the
attained
same
clear."
time, yeah. So what happens after clear? Essentially, what I found out is that there's nothing. After clear, there's nowhere to go from there.
Whatever that means, God is the devil. I mean, the clever devil or whatever. It opens up to wherever you go, whatever you're going to use. Where are we going to survive? How's it going to go? You say, oh, I want to be all these individuals and I want to believe all these things, but then the wind blows in another direction. And you say, whoa, that hurts too much. I got to change my mind about something, because like when it comes down and we go down in the basement and you're laying up on the rack, you're going to do whatever the king tells you to do.
Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard. Buy your copy at B. Dalton's, Walden Books, or wherever paperbacks are sold. A fresh look at today's problems